Hey guys, thank you very much for tuning in today. Today we are actually doing another offline episode of MogTalk. This will be episode number 75, and we are talking about the news in raid leading. And I hope you guys enjoy the show. Again, I apologize for it being offline. It was unexpected this weekend. Something happened with work, but I was able to get two amazing guests, Blizzana and Balana, both on the show to talk about the news in Famitsu and the news that we actually have a little bit from the live letter we were able to talk about. It was happening actually as the show was recording. The live letter wasn't finishing up, so we were able to pull some of that information as well. It was a really interesting conversation between players that are really deep into raiding, and I think that you guys will enjoy it. I hope you guys will enjoy it. But before we start, I do want to let you guys know I won't be in chat this time. Kerr will be in chat. Balana and Blizzana both said that they will try to be in chat to answer any questions you guys have and to take the discussion further if you'd like. Blizzana being Blizzana in the chat and Balana being Yo Jobo. And if you guys want to direct any comments at him, do that, and they should be there to kind of respond. If they're not, then sorry. They lied. I don't know what to tell you, but they're both wonderful on the show. I hope, again, you guys enjoy it. And again, guys, from the last offline show, we did some commercials, and they went okay, I think. I am going to keep going with that. Today, I only have one commercial, and everyone who showed up early will be able to see that commercial sooner than everyone else. And I know, seeing a commercial, wow. But you guys are definitely supporting the stream by watching this commercial, and it really helps me out a lot. So I appreciate it if you guys just stick through the commercial, make it into the intro of the show, and then around the end of the show, we'll probably air it again for anyone who might have missed it. But thank you guys again. Please enjoy the show, and have a wonderful day, I guess.
Ugh, my server stinks. I'm moving to Gilgamesh.
OMG, you should totally move to Balmung. They have the hottest roleplayers.
But, how am I going to get all my glamour over there? These transfer rates suck dookie.
Do not fear, or worry your heads about such small matters. Just call Big Carl's Moving Company. We only hire the muscliest residents around.
Oh my!
Our rows spend their day lifting boxes, stones, and getting ready for your move.
But what about my guild I've earned dancing?
Our rows study the market board daily on each server to find the best investment in minions and dies. Once you arrive on your server, they will flood it all over the market, and it will surely sell. All you need to do is call 1-800-ROGADEN. Talk to our muscly customer service specialist and pick a date.
Oh, a date, huh? A giggle, 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 giggle.
Big Carl's Moving Company. Call 1-800-ROGADEN.
Thanks, Big Carl. Now I can just focus totally on clearing raids because it was totally my server holding me back.
Welcome, everyone. Today is Saturday. It's August the 27th, 2016. I'm Frosty, and this is MogTalk. Honestly, for Frosty and Balana here, it's actually not the 26th or the 27th. It's the 26th right now, right?
That's right. It's like 10 p.m. We're pre-recording this one.
But by the end of it.
We'll be tubing it to you live. It'll be the 27th by the time we finish.
Yeah, by the time we finish, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I live in the future, so.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. All right.
We can't all be time travelers, okay?
We can't always be ahead of everybody. All right. If you guys are new to MogTalk, this is a podcast where the Final Fantasy XIV community comes together and discusses anything from Chocobo Racing to Savage Raiding. Today, we will be discussing more raiding than anything else because in kind of recent news and interviews, Yoshida has said a lot of different things about raiding that some of us are angry about. Maybe a few people aren't angry about. And also, there's the live letter that's happening right now, which will probably end in about 30 minutes or so, and maybe we'll have more information that we want to talk about, too.
Yeah, it's okay. They're just going over, like, new hotbar stuff right now, so I don't think that's, yeah.
Okay, you don't really care about that. All right. So, I brought on two extremely veteran players who you guys are probably familiar with. First off, I'll introduce here Balana, not only a great raider, but also someone who comes in and covers our ass multiple times when I ask him last minute to come on the show.
You gave me a whole 24-hour heads up this time. You're like, can you do it tonight? I'm like, maybe tomorrow, and then we did it today. So.
Yeah, we would have done it last night if we could get it all work out.
8th time being on here, so I think 2 more, and I get a free set of steak knives.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay,
I might do it, man. I'll be seeing you in probably like almost a month.
Yeah, TwitchCon.
Yep. So we'll do it
then. Yeah. I'll probably be there. There's a possibility I might bail if because they announced the date of the patch is on the 27th, so
right.
It's like the first weekend of Prague, and I'd kind of want to be around for that. So maybe I'll just come down for like a night or something.
That's all right, as long as you come and hang out, man.
Yeah.
I'll be down there for 4 days. So.
Are you driving out? Or are you flying?
Driving.
Oh, you should drive to OC. Let's meet up. It'll be a good time.
Okay, we'll do it. All right, we're done with you, Balana. We're gonna go to Blizz now. All right. Now let me introduce our next person here, who has a very similar name, and again, a really great raider, a great raid leader, and also an artist for MogTalk, the person who has touched up all of our overlay here and gave us that logo that you guys see all the time, Blizzana. What's up, man? I can't hear you at all. Did you mute yourself? I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, I accidentally hit my mute button.
Okay, all good. What's up, man?
Man, I'm just kind of upset, disappointed with the news, but other than that, just kind of hanging out.
Okay. There's a little bit of feedback coming through. I don't know what it's coming through from, but do you hear that too, Balana, or is that just me?
Yeah, it's a little bit of echo on Blizz's mic there.
Yeah.
Is it really? I don't know.
I'm only hearing Frosty though. It's just
it's only me. I don't know why. Oh, it's kind of gone now.
Now it's gone. Now we're good.
We're good. All right. Anyways, let me go ahead and make sure people know where you guys stand with raiding, in case they question kind of where you are with everything. Balana, give us a short rundown of where you are with raiding and what you have done.
I played World of Warcraft for 8 years as a warlock. I was on some server first raid teams up until Kata, and I stopped playing that. Floated around for a little bit, started playing Final Fantasy XIV in closed beta 2, and joined a all-right team for First Coil, moved on to D&T after there, and then Elysium after the merger. So
you've been raiding for how many years?
In Final Fantasy since the beginning. But if you clump in WoW with that too, we're looking at like 11 years.
11 years?
Weird to say, yeah.
That's crazy.
Good chunk of my life, yeah.
Blizz, how about you, man?
About the same. I never did get into WoW, but I did get into like Rift early on, and then when I was in closed beta for Star Wars: The Old Republic, raided all the way through there, PvP through there, and then when Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn came out, I scrapped that game for Final Fantasy and been raiding ever since.
I gotcha. All right, so. Again, guys, today we're going to be talking about mainly that Famitsu article that has stirred so much heat and anger. I can't like say that enough. I've heard so many people yell at me saying, "Can you believe they're doing this? This is ridiculous. This is insane. I'll probably not play this game anymore after the next couple patches or even with the expansion." And this was all comments from Yoshida. Some very, very interesting statements he made that was posted on Reddit. This was a post by someone who do you guys know who this was posted by, or was it just a random translator?
Famitsu. He does interviews quite a bit with
Not
Yoshida.
Famitsu, but like the person who translated it. I'm sorry, the person who translate. They did.
Yeah. He sits down and has an interview with him, and he'll go in and translate it as well, and then post it.
I thought Famitsu was a magazine.
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's a magazine. So Yoshida did an interview with Famitsu, and then it's a fan translation that post off Reddit.
That's
I think
what-
that we're going
yeah.
off of here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
what
that
I
is
thought.
put up by
That's
Totoro572. Thank you,
Yeah.
Totoro572.
Yeah, thank you, Totoro.
Your credit to community.
Blizz, a lot of people are going to make fun of you right now. I hope you-
Hey, look, that's fine because I don't go and research like who
That's not a
Famitsu
good
is.
thing.
I just know that Famitsu does a lot of translations of these interviews. So,
Well, they do the interviews, and then someone translates the interview. I think that's
well, hey, look, I thought it was just a handle of somebody. Whatever. Like, I'm old. I can admit it, and my raid team will love that. So,
Yeah. Okay,
I mean,
good.
who even reads magazines anymore? Who would know what Famitsu is?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Come on.
What's a Famitsu?
Come on.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Balana, so, I mean, I don't know who actually translated it, but I'm going to assume the legitimacy was there. The person who translated it actually had a clue what they were doing. And no one really seemed to fight back on what he was saying, so I can't really say that he was doing something wrong with what his translation was. But it seemed like he did a pretty good job of it. If he did do a horrible job and I'm completely wrong, please, guys, correct us and let us know so we can feel more ignorant later on. So the very first question I have for you guys is, what's your temperature like right now? And I'm going to start, I kind of already know where Blizz is at. So I'm going to start with Balana. How do you feel about some of the statements that were made?
Ominous. Some of these things don't bode well. A lot of the things they're saying they want to do is what they did in World of Warcraft that kind of drove me away from it. So hopefully they are not as heavy-handed with it.
Right. And we're going to see a lot of things that were very familiar going towards the direction that WoW took. For example, Raid Finder, or not Raid Finder, but crossover Party Finder. That was something that they introduced in WoW. I don't know if that took a real negative effect to WoW, but I feel like it did end a lot of raid groups and people who kind of cared because they could just log on and just say, click, I'm going to join this random Party Finder or person in our Raid Finder in WoW and just do the content that way.
Yeah, and they even put an extra difficulty just for Raid Finders, the brain dead one, where if you had two people who knew what they were doing, they could clear it.
That's pretty much normal mode right now, right?
Yeah, it's kind of what normal mode became. That was like the first writing on the wall that they're kind of doing the same things here. I don't know about that. And then the talk of pruning the abilities from classes and making them less complex. That's not a good sign.
We'll dive a little bit deeper in that in just a second. Blizz, tell everyone how you are feeling right now. Where are you at emotionally?
Well, my temperature's over 9,000. I'm pretty pissed off at it's not all bad, but a lot of what's said bodes really, really bad for past experiences with other games. And I understand from like a purely business standpoint where they're going with it, but you have to think about the community. And again, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I wasn't really happy that it was kind of lopsided in a way, where a lot of it was based off the Japanese players and not looking more into the differences between them and the NAEU community.
Which I think they did a different article on that later, right?
I missed it.
Okay.
So I heard they did, but I didn't read it.
So everyone probably has this envision of you right now as this Blizzana is like some angry guy just sitting on his like porch, just rocking back and forth and be like, I'm gonna get somebody. It's just like
The funny thing is my raid team tells me that all the time.
oh really?
So yeah.
No,
And you just tell them to get off your lawn. And,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
And what's done is done. I'm an angry old man. That's that's where we're gonna leave it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to probably be taking this from a little bit of a different perspective, because you guys are really you've been clearing the content for a while. Balana, how long have you been? When was your first A8S clear?
A8, 7th week. So it took us a little bit of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blizz,
we were about a week after that. Yeah, about 8 weeks.
Our group just wiped the entire night on A7S. So I'm on a completely opposite spectrum here about where we are with progression. And we've only cleared it 3 times, and we haven't had any real progression on A8S. So I'm actually coming from the side that if anyone's feeling the bad, negative stuff from some of the things that Yoshida said and say, oh, yeah, I agree with you, it's too hard, I'd probably be coming from that side. Although I'm honestly not feeling that as much. I don't want to blame what's going on with the game mechanically right now onto where I'm at, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that more. First thing, Balana, you were saying that things didn't look like they were going in the right direction. One of the things Yoshida said was he doesn't really make things hard until the game's... He doesn't want to make it hard until the game's ending, right? Did I read that right?
I think more of what he's saying is that if they make it too hard, you're going to get fewer players coming in and the game will end sooner. So the idea is he's saying, like, MMOs don't last forever unless you're World of Warcraft, which has basically been going on forever. But their numbers are plummeting too because they did I think a big contributor is all the stuff they're saying here. Mm-hmm. Sorry to keep going back to the WoW analogy, but that's where I've come from. But let's see. Especially hardcore players tend to only focus on content after reaching level 60, but you only have that top tier content. The game state will move from the stable state and head towards the closure of the game. So he's saying if you focus only on the theme park you're putting at the end of the game, people will ride that ride and then get off.
Okay.
And so you need to cater to all steps of it to keep getting new players in, to keep people leveling new characters. Because if no new characters being rolled and nobody's leveling other classes, then none of the old stuff's going to work at all. Okay. If you only cater to that end raid, the end game, it's going to cut out your fresh blood and ultimately end the game.
Actually, that makes a lot more sense to me now that you're saying that. So basically it's saying put their resources, if they're going to end the game, they would put their resources towards mainly in-game stuff and not trying to get more people into it. And so
right, but there's also the other side that they're trying to get more people into endgame. Right. So they're still putting resources and time into that, but if they make it easier, more people can do it, and theoretically more people will stick around.
Yeah. Blizz, on this statement, and what's your thoughts on it, man? I think that's about right.
I think it's going to bite them in the ass. I really do. And the thing is going off this first question, is the game too hard? Does that mean it's ending? Like, no. With Gordius, it was a little high strung for most groups. But with Midas, I think it's really in that kind of niche area where it's still challenging, but it's not incredibly hard that nobody can actually down the content. They're looking purely from, oh, well, Japan players are 3 times, have 3 times the clear as NA EU, and we don't like those numbers. We need to be able to build that up. And I think the hard part comes from, one, NAEU, from what I've noticed with the comments that I've gotten back from some of the opinions that I posted in your chat during your streams and stuff like that, is that the standard idea is minimal effort, maximum output is what people really want. They want to put the minimal effort to get the best out of the game. And that kind of contradicts what I'm used to, at least as someone who comes from raiding for years and years and years, is if you want something, you work your tail end off to get it, whether it's casually, whether it's midcore, whether it's hardcore, depending on what kind of time slot you want to put yourself into. You work for it. You don't sit there and cry and say, hey, gimme, and not even go in there or attempt it, or, just throw your hands up. And I think that's kind of the problem with it's a community issue right now. It's not the game. It's not the difficulty. I know one of the other questions later on, I'll dive a little more into it, but it's one of those things where it's just like, I really don't think it's too hard currently.
Okay. So right now, you guys don't think the difficulty's too hard. Balana?
No, I want to say it's too hard. It's pretty unforgiving, this tier at least, in that there's so many situations where if one person messes up, it's like, okay, wipe it. So, they could definitely scale it back a little bit. Perhaps, it's different in just like how the mechanics are in each one of the fights is how it's going to play out really dictates like the difficulty of it. I mean, if we're getting down to what difficulty actually is.
Right.
So there's certain mechanics that are going to be more difficult. Things like DPS checks or healing checks or things like that. That's going to be more gear dependent and like straight up rotation skill based dependent. And the other ones that are just like running around, figuring out puzzles, things like that. We got a lot more of those in Midas. It's kind of comparing Gordius to Midas. So, but what they're saying they want to do for this last one, I don't know how exactly they execute it. I guess they'd have to go back to something more like Final Coil or Second Coil, where it's a little bit less personal responsibility and more like if one person dies, then it's okay, you can recover.
Well, what I imagine difficulty is going to kind of range towards is stuff like still keep A7S the way it is in there, right? Except for you just don't give the boss the stacking debuff, because that's one of the main factors with that fight, is that people can mess up easily with those balls and other little parts of that fight, but you can't really recover when people mess up. And so I actually think, coming from a healer standpoint, I like to be able to repair stuff. I can't repair a stack on the fucking boss though, right? Like how it becomes that much harder, and so you got to heal that much more, and that's fine. But then it builds up a lot, and so that's one of those fights that the difficulty is that you have to be perfect on the mechanics, or at least as much as possible to where you don't die. Like, there's a couple of things. I think balls are really the main thing that kill people in there, are taking the wrong jail, all right? And so people not getting those simple mechanics down. These are, like, really easy things to do, and it is super punishing if they don't do it, which I guess isn't a bad thing, because it's supposed to be easy and simple. You get a tether, right? And then you go in there and you're like, oh, well, I can kill this ad. I have my cooldowns up for it. Or, oh, I remember to turn my screen and look and see if there's a ball coming at me or not. Which sometimes is not as easy as it should be. Do you guys think the balls in A7S is a little bit more gimmicky than it should be?
Yeah, I mean, even this week, like, we cleared it just fine, but it was the last set of balls, and I remember, like, in the beginning of progression, coming from a healer standpoint as well, because I'm a scholar main. Mm-hmm. Even this week, like, I was just like, man, these balls right now are cancer. Like, this is crazy. I'm running circles around the tank trying to heal and keep them up.
Right.
And we've found ways around it, but overall, I think it really comes down to raid awareness, and that's part of being a raider. Really, is knowing where you need to dodge, when you need to dodge, and how to, for a later thing, keep your damage and your rotation going.
But for someone who's playing the game and they're like, I want to get into raiding and have a challenge, not like super difficult, but have a challenge. Those balls are more than a challenge.
Well, right? They've got to get past 5 and 6 first.
Oh yeah, they got to get past 5 and 6. But we were talking about that raid in particular, right?
Yeah. Then what you said right there is that's what the game's really missing. There's no, like, just get your feet wet, which is kind of like A5, A1, and A2 kind of did the same thing as well, but then it just, like, cranks up too high. I would say scrap normal mode, add 2 more bosses would be the best way to kind of, like, ease people into the pool of raiding.
Yeah, that's a wonderful option too. I mean, just add more bosses and have 2 that are easier and just kind of deal with it. But
well, one of the problems I have is this whole normal mode, and I think it's one of the other questions, but I agree with Balana. Scrap normal mode. Like, this normal mode crap, just get rid of it. It's not worth. There's no benefit really out of anything besides, you can have some spam content for your relic later on or something. And granted, it does give the story, but that's another incentive, which goes back to another question coming up, for people to do the raid instead of just getting the gear. And I think that's what's missing. I think that's why with, like, the Binding Coil Bahamut, that was something people really wanted to look forward to. And yeah, it's just, it's one of those things where I agree with Balana. Add like 2-3 more bosses, make it longer. That way you can scale a little bit easier, where it's not like, all right, 5, it's really easy, derp easy. You can get in there. I mean, we cleared it in a day. Like, go in there, get your feet wet, and then 6, it's like, well, and 6 before the nerf was like in your face, done.
You're right.
Like, you have to be absolutely perfect, and the people who cleared it in that early gear were, you know, you had to be on your game at all times in there until it nerfed it back, which I agree with the nerf at least, because when we got into A7, it was like, what's this?
You're right.
Like,
It's
this
a joke, basically.
yeah, it was, and it was like, what are you doing? So I think they need to really space it out a little bit more.
Right. I mean, that would make sense. There's so many little different options they can do besides taking it into doing 2 different tiers. And I think the 2 different tier system it's fine for some people. For the people who really, really just don't care about trying. They're just like, I want to go in and just see the fight and mess around and have a little bit of fun. That's perfect for them. But, like, the people who can't dedicate the time to just perfecting everything they do and they just want to play the game, have somewhat of a challenge when they come in, they have Nidhogg Extreme. They have Sephiroth, all right? They don't have a raid to do. And I don't think making 3 tiers would be the right solution either, because that's going into the same kind of situation. I mean, it's not the exact same situation, but then they're just making 4 more bosses when they could just make 2 more bosses.
Well, and see, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, oh, well, why don't we add another tier? The problem with that is you're spending more money, you're spending more resources for something that, yeah, players are going to be able to get into, but players probably, for the most part, the people who are kind of at the core of quote unquote the casual base, is they're probably going to go in that hard mode where it's a little challenging. They can get through, they can get their story, but you're still only going to have like your 2% of raiders clearing Savage content. Mm-hmm. So one, you're going to spend resources on a raid that really is nobody's doing, and then you have kind of your middle ground where everybody's kind of happy and doing what they're doing, and you still only have the 2% at the top. So it's like, why waste the resources on it?
The other idea that would be perfect for me, I think, a good compromise, is that they do reduce the difficulty to these fights, right? Like, they're saying they're going to reduce the difficulties, but give something for the people who want to try harder, which again are raid achievements, going in and doing fights and handicapping yourself. These things make those things much more entertaining, because you're like, hey, if you do all these handicaps, you get this shiny mount that no one else knows, and you're the big, badass guy because you have the shiny mount and you've done all the achievements. That's something that people will go for. And
yeah,
I mean, is that something that, I mean, I can understand them kind of dumbing it down, but if they leave out their core hardcore players who spend like so much time in here dedicating themselves to the community of, or maybe not to the community, but at least to building these rotations that the community can come from and challenge yourself a little bit harder or more, it seems like that would be the wrong solution, not leaving something for the hardcore community in some way. I mean, but go ahead, tell me what you're going to say. Sorry, Balana.
Well, let me tell you about a little something called a Second Coil.
Yeah.
Which had a Savage version,
right,
which was hard as nuts, had a regular version that was, not face roll easy.
Right.
And so it was a good balance between the two, and you didn't feel pressured to do the Savage because there wasn't gear attached. But there was achievement. And instead of a fancy mount, you got a fancy title. And if you saw somebody walking around with that fancy title right away, you know they were a BAMF.
Yeah.
So it gives people incentive to do it, maybe once, and then not do it again or help out their friends with it or whatever. But I feel like they went in the really wrong direction with making normal such just a face roll.
Yeah. If they bumped up normal and made it like maybe at least a half or third as hard as the current turn is, then that would be okay too. To me, for some reason, I feel like if I could have content where I'm like, I can do this every week as a challenge and I get something from it, and then I could push myself harder in the higher tier raids, that would be good too. But then who are we leaving out? We're leaving out the crafters and gatherers who do nothing but craft and gather, and they don't actually raid, but they want to go into a raid, right? Does that? I still don't understand that marketplace right there. For
not to interrupt you, but my experience with that is a lot of those crafters and gatherers, because we've done cells in the past, and I don't know if you have Balana on your server or anything like that.
Done one or two.
But we've had FCs of crafters come to us and be like, hey, we'll pay you this much to go in there and get our shinies out of it. We just want to see the fight. We don't care. We'll take you in. It's already on Echo. Like, they just wait until the end to kind of get what they want. And we did that all through Coil. We tried a little bit in Gordius, but we just, a lot of people just, had quit the game by that point. So it was just...
Yeah.
Gordius really did. People say this all the time. Gordius kind of killed the raid scene in Final Fantasy.
Pretty bad.
People got up to the A3 wall and it just crumbled them. Even in Elysium, we went from 8 raid teams and I think only 4 emerged from Gordius. So we got wrecked pretty hard just by it.
We went from 5 to 2. So yeah, it wrecked a lot of people, and it was just because that fight alone was just so high tuned. You had to be perfect with your mechanics. You couldn't make a mistake, because especially early on when you got there, one mistake, kind of like currently in like A7 or something like that with 220 gear, like one mistake, you were done. It's wipe. Let's start over. Even in almost max gear, we struggled sometimes with one death. And on top of that, like, you had to have your scholar doing max DPS. You had to have your tanks, maxing out their DPS as well, and your DPS on point. And it was rough. It was rough for a lot of people. I was really happy with Midas when they scaled it back and they were like, all right, we're going to focus more on the mechanics. There's not going to be this huge DPS check, because it really got boring. Yeah. And that's why I really feel like the mechanics, like in 6 to start with, but after after they nerfed it, I think it's fine where it's at.
Yeah. I think Midas right now is at a great spot. I actually don't think there's anything bad about it. There's some things that they could alter and make it just a little bit easier and not so bad and punishing. But I feel like it's at a pretty good spot. A7 is challenging. It's something that's like hard to do, and everyone has to be together. I kind of wish they would have put it at like a 11-minute mark or something instead of like a 13-minute mark. Like if they could just cut 2 minutes off that fight or something, just because I am so tired of doing that fight for 12 minutes and then wiping because 1 or 2 people die and then like 3 sizzle sparks come out. And I'm like, well, I mean...
Oh, we know the feeling, because every week that we get in there, we just try to speed kill it. It's like, kill it as fast as possible, because I hate that fight as a healer so much, because that fight really doesn't step you up into anything. I remember doing it for the first time as a healer, and it was like, okay, the first 75% of this fight is like derp easy. I can DPS. I don't really have to worry about many heals here or there. Then you get to merry-go-round, and right after that, and then healers are like, shit.
They force you into a solo hill, basically. And, like, I mean, you have to kind of get your fairy out there and make him do stuff, and you have to try to dive in maybe every once in a while. But
See, that's the problem that we had, is that we thought, okay, well, we're going to be split apart with the fire beam with, Searing Wind. And then we learned, oh, hey, look, I can move the max range and not hit anybody and still heal or DPS or do whatever I need to do. So that was one of the things. And I know it's kind of risky for a lot of players, but it's something that you have to build on, that you have to grow as kind of a person and be like, okay, I know kind of the range where I need to be so I can help out my other healer, because sometimes things get hectic in there. People getting hit by one of the three
the balls make everything like ridiculous. Like all the movement, I'm like, oh well, they're gonna dodge right into my fire. Well, this is great. It's a lot of watching.
Yeah,
it's a lot of watching. Everyone has to watch for that too. And I mean, people can do that, and that's good. But I mean, I think when we go to the other players that they're mentioning, I'm going to go to this next statement here in just a second, so we can start building on some of these other comments here. This is a lot.
I told you I had a lot.
We're kind of jumping around a little bit. We're
jumping around a little bit.
Each one, so.
Yeah, and so the main topic, I guess, right now is more of like casual players and hardcore players and why they're adjusting content and if it makes sense. And casual players have a lot of trouble in A7S. This is true. This is not even something that we would ever debate, because it makes sense. They're casual players. They're not going to have an easy time through it. People who are mid-core players, I guess if you want to call it that, have a hard time going into A7S2, unless if they have 8 people who are really dedicated to do this stuff. The people, I guess, who are having the biggest trouble are people who like this game, play this game, try to push themselves, but they just want to play with their friends. Every once in a while, you're going to have a friend that's not so good, and because of that friend, you can't clear content. You can't do it because you have one person holding you back. And I mean,
it falls back on the raid leader at that point, though. Like, you have to get people motivated to go. It was like I was saying in your chat earlier. As the raid leader, your job is to demand the most out of your players for what your team's goal is. So if if you set a timeline, you need to go in there and be like, hey, look, you need to, make sure that your mechanics are good. If you make a mistake, that's fine. Like, we all make mistakes. We're human. But, try to minimize the mistakes going in there and really focus down on what you're trying to do, because it really sucks when you have that one person holding you back. And sometimes you have to make the tough decision is like, hey,
do I want to clear content, or do I want to not have my friends anymore? Like, I mean, that's...
What do you want to hold back 7 other people, or do you want to, try to get this person up to speed? And if they're not going to get up to speed, are you going to remove them and replace them?
It's a sticky situation. It varies between every single group, I think.
It's a decision that a lot of people don't want to make.
It's definitely a hard call to make.
Yeah. And so that's where it gets really difficult. And I think those are the groups of players who are struggling. I still think those groups aren't going to have a raid leader who's going to say, all right, I'm getting you out of my group so we can clear this content. I think it's healthy for the group and the rest of my friends. You are the weaker friend, and you are going to go to the side, and we're going to clear this stuff and have fun, because we don't want you in there anymore. I mean, those groups, they exist, and that they clear stuff successfully. But then you have the other groups who just really want to clear this stuff with their friends. They will fight in every little bit that they can to convince their guy, hey, show up, learn this stuff, and get it down. I just don't want my friend to die, and then I'm like, well, we just wasted our entire 10 minutes here. Let's start over. I don't know. I feel like that's what he's trying to target right now. That's the only reasoning I can give that. He's trying to keep friendships together. Yoshida's trying to keep everyone friends again. All right.
If raiding is a thing, and I know it gets stressful, but if raiding is a thing that breaks up friendships, and I've lost friends because I've removed people from the team, and it shouldn't come down to that. Like, if everybody wants to clear and that one person just doesn't have the right mindset, is it really fair to the rest of the people that he can just be like that? Or do you need to light a fire up under his ass and get him motivated?
But that's a discussion about raid leading and not a discussion about making casual content.
Look, I'm very passionate about being a raid leader. So
I got you. Yeah. And so, I mean, I have a lot of different thoughts on that, but I feel like a lot of people are in the zone where they can't clear this content and have fun. They have to clear this content and feel like it's a job. Do you guys think that's a true statement?
No fun allowed. No fun allowed. Serious rating only.
I feel like a lot of it, you have to be serious. You have to try hard. And that is fun for a lot of people. But some people want to log in and they want to say, I'm clicking my buttons. I'm a black mage. I'm casting spells. And I'm clearing content. Then this content's not for them. Go ahead.
I think it's a confusion of mindset, though. Because we all want to have fun. I'm sure Balana will agree. Like, when I go into raid, I want to have fun. But fun to me is different from fun to someone else. And you have to go in with the mindset of, okay, if you just want to be with friends and, try to clear content and stuff, go in there with that mindset. I think the problem lies is a lot of people look to social media and everything else. And you look at teams like Balana's or, Elysium's first team with Layla and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, these guys are clearing content and they're getting all this gear and, they're doing really well. I want to be like them. But they don't have the skill set to do it.
Or the people in the group that could help them get to that point. I mean, they can still do really good in the fight, but all right, I'm not going to get into the raid dynamic stuff here. That's a whole different show, which we'll come back to one day, I'm sure.
Frosty, I think you just brought a lot of salt from your raid tonight. I think you filled up a big bag of salt and you brought it onto MogTalk tonight.
I brought all my salt
dishing
tonight.
it out.
I'm dishing it all out, man. No, I mean, I'm happy when I can, like, when in WoW. This is how I died off. And I played WoW for years. The last expansion, I bought that, Warlords of Draenor. I was playing it. And so it was a group of friends. We went down to one raid night a week. Tuesdays, we'd log on for a few hours and just raid. We were as casual as we could. But, you know, we had fun and we accomplished things.
Yeah, well, that's because there's like 12 bosses in the tier, so you can go in there and fuck around on like 3 of them and still kill them. You get that sense of progression. It's when you have 2 bosses and you run into a fucking solid wall made out of Pepsi Man. Is when people get frustrated with the game. They're like, hey, we're trying our hardest and we're only killing 2 bosses. I mean, come on. So that's why I say adding more bosses is a good thing. Ramp up the difficulty, give people, you know, the little adrenaline rush of killing a boss. You kill another boss. You kill one. Oh, this one's kind of harder, but we can do it. We can challenge together. And then you get to the end and they all hit the wall there. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like the last few bosses just being really hard. That's something that I can't really say, hey, Square, you have to do this, because I don't know how their resources work. It's something that makes sense and that we want, and it should make sense. I don't know if it's something that they can just snap their fingers and make happen.
If they crap ideas like Lord of Verminion and spend the resources on more bosses.
Well, that whole discussion comes in. Well, are the same people who are making Lords of Verminion the same people who would actually create raids?
No, but the company that's spending the resources is the same. So, like...
I mean, they would have to get another person out there to help them develop raids. And I think that would make sense if they cut out a lot of, I guess, BS that they're doing. They have a lot of experimental things. And then just start catering more towards the raid scene. But I guess they're in this mentality, right? And you were talking about it earlier, Blizz. They were talking about, hey, Japan has 3 times the clear rate of everyone. And we want to cater towards them, so we want to make things easier?
No, I don't think it's so much catering towards them. I was just mad at the implication of it, really, because it was like, okay, well, we're not going to talk about the West. We're just going to kind of centralize, which, you know, SE is a Japanese company, so I can't really blame them too much for it. But, you know, talk about the other problems as well. And granted, they were going into this whole thing of, oh, well, Japanese players aren't used to hard content. And I mean, if you look at any like Korean or other Asian game, a lot of them are really grind oriented and really not any hard content. So I can kind of understand that. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, well, they have this want or need to clear something because there's stuff out there. And I think that's kind of the mindset that the West needs to kind of adopt, I guess, almost. Okay. I think that'll fix a lot of the community.
So I'm near certain the reason they were talking so much about Japanese players and everything else is because it was a Japanese magazine, and they're like, let's focus all on Japan and how you're doing in Japan and like do all that stuff. So that kind of makes sense to me. But as a game as whole, I think they should kind of look at rewards because people like rewards, right? Universally, people like rewards, right? I mean, even in Japan,
I hate them.
Even in Europe, even no matter what, people like rewards, and it seems like it's pretty easy for them to make these rewards because of how much stuff shows up in that cash shop. I mean, I don't know how much they're probably making lots of money off of that, so I can't really pull that away. But just make different colors of things. I don't know, make some neat things that raiders who are doing these challenges and having raid achievements can get.
The raid achievements will be good. Scrap all this idea of putting in minions at the end of freaking A8S because that shit was crap. You can't go from giving me titles and a mount to giving me a minion. Screw that.
Yeah, if you put 3 of them together, they blow up.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I agree. I have no clue why that was that. Maybe they were trying to take rewards away from it so people didn't feel forced to do it. I don't know. I don't.
What if they give you like a red Gobwalker? Would that have been cool? Would that have been it? Like
I would have been happy with that. Like it's something that I can use on the daily. Like I don't pull out my minions every day. I don't go play Lord of Verminion. I think it was kind of a cop out to be like, oh hey, we got this failing product over here in the game. Here's a minion, go play. And
I don't think they're putting any more resources in Lords of Verminion. To be honest with you,
I hope not.
They're adding it to Duty Finder next patch.
That's
some
good.
resources.
that's good. That's a good thing, right?
That's minimal though. Like
Right.
I can live with that, but it's like nobody is gonna play it. It flopped day one. Like stop. Just it's dead.
When they announced Duty Finder for Lords of Verminion in the Elysium TeamSpeak, Chia just started freaking out. She's like, "That's the one achievement I haven't been able to get because nobody plays it."
It's gonna
Guess
it's
what?
gonna help
Nobody's
out.
still gonna play it.
I think some people might, maybe.
Well, it'll be cross server, so you'll
Chia
at least
will.
be able to find
I'll
them.
play against Chia.
Yeah.
I'll just sit in
There
there. I'm
you
like,
go.
I'm gonna queue
Yeah.
up against Chia. Let me play Lords of Verminion. I won't have anyone else in there to play with. It'll just be like, I want to do something with Chia. I'm gonna throw some minions at him. Although
But
he'll
yeah,
kick my ass. But
He probably would, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel as like a raider when I'm spending a month and a half of my time to clear the content. A minion's really like a suitable reward at the end of it. I mean, yeah, we get the weapons and stuff, and don't get me started on this 250 weapon crafted bullshit because I'm not really happy about it either. But
so before, we'll jump into that here in a second. Let's throw that back a little bit more. I want to keep
a lot of salt.
I want to transition from, good players, bad players, into a lot of stuff that they were talking about and how they're going to start moving into the direction of rotations and how they're too hard for people. Rotations are too complex. They need to make it simpler so people can focus on raids and do all the mechanics. Do you guys agree? I'm seeing it. I can see all the agreement in your faces right now.
This was one of the big things that pushed me off of WoW. Is I can't remember which expansion it was. They crunched all the abilities, and your job went from maybe like 10 to 12 buttons to down to 5. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping they don't do that. I mean, 2.0 was a pretty good place. I think that's what they're saying they're trying to get back to. Is kind of like 2.0 level.
Not the 2.0 Paladin.
Yeah, no, not 2.0 Paladin.
No.
But I think one of the biggest things that they mentioned is like having to keep an eye on buffs, and during the translation, that's what kept coming up. And I think that's kind of a direct allusion to, they kind of gave Grease Lightning basically to a lot of different classes. Like summoners have those stacks to take care of. Black mages have Eno Chain, and I don't play any of the classes, so whatever those other people have to look at.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big kind of skill caps, but it's also one of the more annoying skill things to have to pick up is being able to keep, those stacks up. Got to keep your buff going. And that's kind of a nagging thing, especially when you're doing progression. You will like sort of all of a sudden like, oh, we have a new phase transition in, and there goes my stacks. Oh no, oh well. So I think there could be improvements made, but hopefully they don't just go through and gut everything. That's what I'm really scared they're going to do.
Yeah, Bliss, do it, man.
Yeah, I agree with what Balana says. I hope they don't crunch it down because at some point they will if they keep expanding on the classes. I was having a discussion in TeamSpeak with my raid team earlier about this, is that, at some point they're going to have to consolidate some of the skills and maybe combine 2 skills at once or something like that, where you're not going down to, like Balana said, a 5-button rotation, turning this into Guild Wars or something like that. But the problem I have is I don't know anybody that said, oh, these jobs are way too complex to really manage. The only 2 classes that I can have some leniency for, and this is what I was saying to my raid team, are Dragoons and Black Mages with Enochian stacks and Blood of the Dragon. Yeah, you pop that, like Balana said, phase transition, boss disappears. Oh, all right, well, there goes like 75% of my damage. Like, those 2 classes I can understand. But, like I was also arguing with my raid team, Monk has been doing this since the beginning of the game.
Right.
You had to manage Grease Lightning stacks.
I mean, that's part of it. You manage, you're like, hey, how am I going to make sure that I get the most effect out of my spell? I have to know exactly when this boss is going to jump. And then that changes as you do more and more DPS and you're pushing phases and stuff. But I don't think that matters. If you're pushing phases, I can't feel sympathy for you sometimes with some of these rotations.
Well, but the thing is we're not even talking about pushing phases at this point. This is early progression that we're talking about, of seeing a new fight and having to learn it. But that's part of progression. It's a learning phase. Like, you have to go in there and you have to work out where your rotation's going to be. When you go in there, I mean, I tell my guys, I'm like, look, focus on mechanics. I don't care about your DPS, whatever. As long as we can figure out the mechanics first, then you can work your rotation around it. And they're smart enough to understand, hey, look, okay, I can do this here, and we discuss it like, oh, where do I need to put up battle litany, or where do I need to pop, trick attack, or where's the best place to do this, do that, because I mean that's how you grow as a group. You have to have communication, and you have to really kind of focus down on, hey, this is part of my class. When I go into this new content, okay, well, there's a boss transition here. Do I need to hold off on, my Blood of the Dragon or something like that? That was one of the big things in A3 is those or phase transitions into hand phase and stuff like that. Like, okay, do I need to hold off on it and just do 2.0 rotation, or can I actually kind of cheese it as a DPS and get it off? And that's just things that you learn in progression. And I don't see where the job rotation complexity is currently. I like the problem where it lies in there.
The problem comes from what they kind of mentioned later on, which is another bullet point we have here, but closing the gap between hardcore and casual players. Is that the people who learn the fights, who learn how to adapt their abilities around, these points where the boss is untargetable, so, I need to refresh my stacks here, I need to not use this here, this and that. That's what makes, the hardcore player perform so much better than the casual ones. Whereas if you had a easier rotation, a more brain-dead one, then then the casual person would be able to do just about as well as if you had, 2.0 Black Mage. Compared to 3.0 is the best example. 2.0 is you cast fire. This one, you cast fire 4, you need to keep Eno Chain up. So if you can't, keep that up throughout the fight, then you're at a huge disadvantage compared to the better player. And what they're saying they want to do is lessen that gap. So they essentially are saying they want to take skill out of the game, which I don't think is a good thing.
No, and I don't agree. I mean, my Black Mage was actually complaining about it because he was like, really? He was like, I hated 2.0 Black Mage because it was so brain dead easy. It was fire, Blizzard. And it was like, once they added Enoki and they added Fire 4, they added Blizzard 4, like it became a really fun class to play. And you're really going to piss off players that enjoy the change. I mean, for a new player coming in, yeah, it may seem daunting, but you also have to understand you have to get the basics of your rotation. And there's plenty of content all over the internet about rotations and cooldowns and cooldown timers and where you should be popping them where. Go beat up a dummy for a little bit. Yes, it's not like a real-time example of what you're going to be facing as far as cooldown timers and stuff in battle, but it'll give you that foundation, and that's what you have to build first. Then you can build off of that when you get into the actual content.
Yeah,
but man, I just
go ahead.
I just want to play a video game, man. I don't want to go read a 64-page summoner guide to learn how to play the class.
There's so many solo games, like one-player games that you can play. But, to kind of add to this, I think what they were saying was, hey, we don't want people to have to learn how to do the rotations plus learn how to do the fights at the same time, which I think, again, I don't like that statement because I feel like that was part of the challenge. But I do agree that the community as a whole has an issue with learning to clear a fight and learning to clear a fight optimally, and they can't really so they'll sit there and they'll tunnel vision and they'll focus purely on making sure they do the highest DPS they can, and then they'll ignore the mechanics and die. And that's kind of what their point was, like, hey, right now people are, I guess that's kind of what they're saying, was people are tunnel visioning, or tunnel visit, how do you say it, tunnel visioning?
Visioning.
Visioning, okay. And they're not able to do the mechanics properly. So we want to have less mechanics, or we want to have less for them to tunnel vision on, right? Is that kind of what they're saying?
It seems to be the case, yeah. Just that.
And so it takes you to another skill level to where you can pay attention to both your rotation and both the fight itself. And I think what's happening is the players, they know what kind of rotation they have to get in. They practice on those dummies. They know what they have to do, but they don't know they have to focus on the fight too. And so it's hard. That's where that skill comes in between casual and like really good players too, because they're like, hey, I can do the beginning of the fight. I can do 10,000 damage in the first like 10 seconds of the fight, but when I actually have to start doing stuff, it just drops down, and then they start freaking out, and they're like, how do I make my rotation optimal? How do I not look stupid? How do I not be at the bottom of the ACT under the paladin? So people are out there stressing this stuff out instead of learning the fight to do it.
Well, and if this was a conversation that we were having at the start of Heavensward, I'd be like, okay, everybody, the change from 50 to 60 for a lot of the classes was pretty drastic. And going into Savage Mode content, and I think that's why they had that 2-week gap in between normal mode and Savage Mode, was kind of that grace period for people who are wanting to get in there and really practice and down content, to have that grace period to learn the new class. And honestly, like, was it enough time? Not for a lot of people. Your top tier people are going to figure it out pretty easily because they come from WoW, like Balana, and people who are used to very complex rotations and cooldown management and stuff. But now, like, we're so far in now. Like, there's been enough time. Granted, I know there's new players coming in, but a lot of the complaints are coming from some of the older players too. Like,
who are the complaints even coming from, guys?
Have you
heard someone complaining?
I don't know, but I can't honestly say that every new player that's come into this game is the sole reason why this is even a discussion right now. I have to believe that some of the players that have been playing at least since Heavensward are some of these people that are complaining about the job complexity being too high. And it's like, no, like, I know it seems really daunting, and there's a big change, especially like in Bard, for example, when you go from being this mobile, support to you're a range caster,
Yeah.
So it's a big change, but at this point, like, I don't have any sympathy for it. I really don't. Like, I like to try to be an ambassador of skill and building people up, but you have to have that want and that drive. Like, you just can't come to me and be like, oh, this is way too hard. I don't know anything of what I'm doing. I don't even know the basic rotation. Can you teach it all to me? No, I'm not going to spoon feed you. Like,
you're not. What you're saying is that you're not an elitist, right? Or
hey, look, you can label me whatever you want, but my thing is like, my idea is I want to build this game for, with at least the people around me, to be more skillful. Like Balana was saying, they seem like they're trying to take the skill out of the game. No, like, you have to have that skill there. That's what grows the game, honestly, because you're going to have more communication. The community is going to be buzzing about it, at least. Maybe there will be more people who are willing to help people. They had that whole mentor system. That was a joke. But anyways, it's like things like that are really good ideas, but there's no application behind it to help it along. And to build the skill, you can't take it out. It's plain and simple.
So
yeah.
In a comparison here, would you guys rather have more difficult fights or more complex rotations?
More difficult fights. I think that could, just because that can be enjoyed by the entire team, by the entire raid team. You can have some more complex classes that maybe have a bit of a better payout for the increased complexity. But I think there still needs to be some classes that are a bit easier to play. Like in 2.0, you had Paladin, Black Mage, White Mage, were I call them the go-to easy mode classes. I call them for the controller players. But there's some really good controller players out there now, so I can't really say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like there were those but those classes that were supposed to be kind of the intro vehicles ended up getting a huge jump in complexity in Heavensward, and I think that's where the only cases of whiplash of complaints are really coming from.
Okay. Blizzana. I was doing good so far, guys. I was doing good.
Hey, look, I told you can label me whatever you want.
Asshole. So,
but
Blizz, would you rather more complex fights or more complex player skill where they have to do more complex rotations, I guess.
I'm actually with Balana on this. I'd rather have the more complex fights. I mean, you can only do so much with a rotation before it gets so stupid hard to do that you really can't, get the most out of it. I think kind of where it is between the classes, yeah, there's a skill gap on some of the classes, but that's also like an achievable note, like a personal note for you to figure that out. And I don't think it's really too hard either on the flip side of that to really do that, as long as you put in a little bit of time and effort. Granted, it gets a little bit harder in the fights with some of the classes, but again, that goes back to my progression comment. So yeah, I'd rather have harder fights.
Would
definitely.
you guys be okay with them dumbing down some of the classes in 4.0 if they made more interesting fights that were more challenging?
Be an interesting turnoff. Interesting trade-off. I don't know how much I would really want to give up on the complexity of the class itself. I think it's in a good place right now, but I mean, it's going to be expansion, 10 more levels, be adding 5 more abilities. Who knows how complex it'll be. They could just give everybody, a tri-bind, and so it'll be a useless ability that nobody ever uses.
Right.
And that would, not change everybody's rotations. But it's a tricky tightrope to walk, because basically I'm thinking back to World of Warcraft when I was playing a Warlock in Burning Crusade. The rotation was literally one button, but I still had a blast with it because there was a bunch of crazy fights with a bunch of weird mechanics and things like that. But I was just sitting there spamming Shadow Bolt over and over.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
it's yeah. I mean, things can still be fun with a boring rotation, but I do like to have that level of skill achievable by the complexity of the class. If you have a less complex class, there's less skill to achieve. It all just becomes execution of the fight. If you have more complex classes but less execution based, then it all becomes just DPS races.
Okay, Blizz.
I think one of the things, and this has been a discussion all over Reddit, between me and my raid group, between me and some of the other people, is bringing in sort of a skill tree in its own way. And I know, I believe Yoshi or one of the devs or something said that right now it's not something that's possible and it doesn't really fit into the Final Fantasy lore and this and that. But if you think
don't ever say it doesn't fit into the lore. They make bullshit fit into the lore all the time, and I do not want that to. So
no, I agree.
Sorry, you just something snap. But go ahead, go. Sorry, go.
Well, my on the backside of that is, if you look back to like something like Final Fantasy VII with the materia and stuff, you slotted your skills and your summons and stuff like that, and different traits that you could have on your characters in the materia system. Right now, the materia system's like, okay, I can put some of these secondary stats, which I know we'll get into later, but we can put in these secondary stats. They don't really do a whole lot, but you can put them in there anyway. And there's really no customization to that. One of the things that I'd really like them to see is scrap some of these crap-ass traits that we have on some of these classes, and maybe put in some like passives or something. If they're going to really dumb it down, put in some passives that really help the class keep certain things up, certain buffs or whatever up, that maybe it's a little bit easier to manage that way, because I'm so sick of looking at these traits that just don't do anything. It's so bad.
Well, I mean, what I feel the original idea for traits was to have a more robust cross class system. And that's why you see things like on Blood for Blood, it goes better on Dragoon because they're the one who gets it, so it's better for them. But then you can also bring it over to somebody else. It's not quite as effective, but you still have it. And then they just kind of gave up on the whole cross
Yeah,
system.
I think that's just a relic that came from 1.0, and they didn't take it out. They just ran with it because it's part of the core system. No. And Yoshi just said, I really want to move as much away from it as I can, right?
It's a very Final Fantasy thing to have, like the cross-class skills and things like that. But so that's why they kept it in, but they never really went with it. Like, try pulling a rogue skill across, or try pulling, a Dark Knight ability. Like, you can't do it.
Well, no, you can't. And that's another thing with the cross-class abilities. Some of those are useless too. Like, on most of your classes, you have a set 5 that you need to take, and that's it. Like, you have stuff like on Paladin, Cure. When the hell are you ever gonna cure? Especially now since you have Clemency. Like,
exactly.
It's kind of silly how they had that. I wish that they did more with that mixing and everything, but I feel like they're just. I'm I gave up on even thinking about it, dreaming about it. Don't even want to do it. It's just not something that's going to be brought into this game. Although apparently Yoshi said that this MMO is going to do something that it's never done, no other MMO has ever done before, and coming in 4.0, and it's supposed to be something really exciting. But I still don't imagine. I can't even see that even being a remote possibility.
I'm waiting on skill trees and I'm waiting on set bonuses. That's all I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on those two. Like every other MMO has it, and I know they want to be different, but like one of the biggest things that just grinds my gears currently is like the lack of individuality amongst players. Is like you have all these cookie cutter rotations, cookie cutter, builds as far as gear, and that's it. Like there's no customization.
I would like it if they could make it to where, some of these stats can lead me into a play style that I like with my job. I'm playing Black Mage and I want to do full skill speed, spell speed, and be really powerful that way, which is how everyone's doing it. But no, wait, I want to be a Black Mage who focuses on just really huge hits with just crit only, or just going into some other direction besides just doing the generic path and using those attributes to define your play style and optimal play, and it still competes with the other one. One will be a little bit better than the other one, but you could say, hey, I'm a skill speed mage, or god damn it, spell speed mage, or hey, I'm a what's the other one that I'm missing? It's spell speed, determination, crit.
Parry paladin?
No, parry paladin. Yeah, parry paladin.
They're supposed to be reworking parry. Don't be hating on them.
Well, we'll see. But I don't know. Go ahead.
Parry was a thing back in the day, though. You could stack that and get crazy block, but I mean, you can't do that anymore. But back on my skill tree thing, like that's something where they could kind of dumb it down to. You could have 2 or 3 different trees or whatever, where if you don't want all the management, but you can still kind of manage the damage and stuff, you can go into one tree. But if you want something more complex, you can go into this tree. And something that gives, like, I don't know, more utility to the raid or something like that, where you're a little more skilled, I guess, is the way I would put it, where you can kind of boost the rest of your raid team or something like that. I mean, it'd be hard to really kind of balance that, but I mean, it's just a general idea of what maybe they could do where you don't have to pay attention to so many buffs.
One thing I think really go ahead.
Well, I think the big trade-off they did is instead of like WoW, where you have the single class of 3 skill trees, is they have a game here now where you can play every class in the one character. So say you want to be more supporty, you play the Bard. You'd be more bursty damage, Black Mage. Something a little bit more complex, you play Summoner. So you've got, instead of the skill trees, you've got the different jobs, I think. And so that's where you can get the flavor. So instead of adding specs to things, they're going to be adding more and more classes. And I'd like to think down the line, perhaps for every single role, you'd have as many selections of individual classes as you would like talent trees in another game.
I'm just more scared that they're going to do something like they did with Heavensward. And one of my biggest pet peeves is that they came out with the 3 classes and then they were like, oh, hey, guess what? They're not as good as the current classes. And it's like...
Well, Dark Knight kind of came in and...
Well, that was only because there was a lot of magic damage that we...
Yeah, and they're crazy DPS checks.
And Machinist was great, man. At the beginning, it was fine. I don't know. I didn't mind Machinist.
It needed a big buff from where it started.
I played it, and I thought it was perfect, and I thought I was doing good. I don't know.
But... that's one of the things. Even now with Astro, like, and that's another topic for later down the line in this segment as well. Is Nocturnal Astro never gets played ever? Yeah. Why would you? Because Scholar hands down beats it at everything.
Well, you do Scholar Astro. That's the thing. Like, and then you wouldn't. But since you can't stack shields, it's pointless.
Yeah, I guess that kind of jumps down to a different point where we're saying that Yoshi is admitting that Scholars and Warriors are too overpowered right now, and that's you want both of those in every single raid. There's no reason not to take them just because they're so good right now, and it kind of locks out those slots of other possible jobs coming in and taking it.
Does that feel refreshing? By the way, just real quick, does that feel refreshing that he came out and admitted these 2 jobs? What everyone's saying all the time, he's just like, yeah, they're too powerful, they're too strong, we know it, there's nothing we can do right now, we're just gonna have to let it go, and then maybe in 4.0 we'll push everything up to that level.
Oh, that's exactly what they said about Paladins in 2.0.
Oh yeah.
Before Warriors were. If you,
War-
you got,
I've had my history lessons. Yeah.
Dude,
Warriors back in
Warrior
the day.
was a bad place early in the game. A bad place. Like you had to be top kick player to play Warrior in content.
So what they were saying though is that we don't want to nerf Paladin. Paladin's too strong right now. Warrior's I think where we'd want it to be, but because Paladin's so strong, we're gonna have to bring Warrior up alongside of it. So I think they might try to do something like that. But another point is that pets make things hard to balance, because with a Scholar, you have that pet out there with infinite mana, always healing. So even if you're DPSing, you still have your fairy out there healing. So it's really hard, because that's so good for the raid. It's hard to say, no, we don't want the Scholar, because you're also saying, oh, we don't want a free heal pet sitting around spamming on everybody.
Right. And so what you would have to do is you'd have to buff everyone a little bit past Scholar to get that benefit, like to make even sense at all. And then someone just has to be really good with their pet in order for Scholar to even survive, and brings it to this whole nother Scholar is one of the highest tier skill levels, I think, out there when you're doing progression, when you're going through fights and you're learning them and trying to be optimal, because there's so many things you can do with Scholar. It's insane. I don't know about Warrior in 3.0 or 3.x if they're really that difficult to play.
They're not.
I
they're
think you just
one of the
fail
easier
cleave
class
usually,
stuff.
right? That's kind
Well,
of
it's because they didn't really gain all that much complexity in Heavensward. They got another stance, so it's basically, oh, here's the stance.
So instead of turning it off, you just switch it.
Yeah. So most of the new abilities go with that new stance. So you learn like kind of dance in between them, but you don't have to really learn like a new rotation or anything too much of one with Warriors. An easier transition, I think.
Yeah. One thing they could do is just make it to where you don't manage your fairy. It just does its own little thing, man. Come on, kill skill levels.
No.
You don't have to be. Your fairy just goes out there. It does its own thing.
You better stop it. You're about to tilt me off this planet.
It's just very generic things. Just every once in a while, you can have one button that says, "Hey, let's just Whispering Dawn." You don't do anything else with it. It's just Whispering Dawns.
I am so pissed still that they have not fixed my damn fairy, because back in I think it was second and final coil, I could heal 2 people at once. I can't do that shit no more, because they they screwed up the AI, because if someone's below that threshold, and that's one of the things that I hate about Celine too, is literally you use 2 of her skills, because if you try to spam her silence or you try to spam her AoE cleanse and someone's below that threshold, guess what? It's going off late, and my warrior hates me for it, and I don't care. I just tell him, hey, look, try to SC, because I can't do anything about it. I'm spamming my 3 key. For someone like me who micromanages their pet, like, it's one of those things, like, it needs to be fixed, and
or they could just make it where you don't do anything with the fairy and it's fixed. You don't have to do anything anymore.
Don't give my raid team another excuse to blame me for not healing and thanking EOS or Celine for doing all the healing and carrying me through the content. Like, I don't need that. They already trolled me enough for it. But I guess that the one thing that's more refreshing from his comment isn't so much that he came out and was like, oh, Scholar Warrior's OP. It was more so that, hey, we're not going to nerf these 2 classes. We're going to bring everybody back up. Because one of the things I hate are nerfs. Nerfs are always bad. Granted, in 6, it was needed, because honestly, 6 was probably, in my mind, way harder than even 8 getting into it. But you know, as far as that progression went, but nerfing anything, whether it's classes or content, is usually a really, really bad sign. So I'm glad that they're bringing it up.
But they can't make all those changes in a patch. They have to make all that in an expansion when they have all that
Pretty
stuff.
much.
Yeah, it's too much work to bring all that. So it's just going to be done. I'm glad that they kind of just acknowledge that Scholar and Warrior are kind of in those positions, and that's something that they don't like, and that's something that they do want to fix. And just saying those words, it's just nice. Guys, it's nice hearing some sort of acknowledgement. But, okay, so going into that, I think we went a lot into jobs and classes. We went a lot into skill rotation and kind of how we feel about, all the other things that are going into the next tier with difficulty in raids. They talked a lot about horizontal. They mentioned horizontal a couple of times. One, horizontal as in horizontal content, right? And the other one was horizontal entrance into the game for new players. those are two different things that they're talking about, right?
Right.
We're going okay.
Right.
So, horizontal entrance. My idea was that they are trying to make it to where people can kind of just get up to where everyone else is a little bit quicker, and it's not like they come in and they have to just sit there and go up a ladder the entire time. They can just kind of come into the game, and then they can kind of be where everyone else is. Is that what they're talking about?
To some extent. I mean, I don't know how. My problem with it is I don't know how they're going to fit it in. We've had 3 years of straight up vertical progression in this game. I don't know how they're going to change the entire dynamic of the scaling system in content and in just getting into the game in general. I think getting into the game in general will be easier, but as far as the vertical progression that we've had through all the content and raid and stuff, I really don't understand how they're going to change that, because when you think of horizontal, it's more of like kind of an open world progression type deal.
I mean, I think it's more like crafted gear and primals and relics and other ways to get in other than doing the hardest content there. It'd be another avenue to be able to qualify for it.
Okay, so not having to do the hardest content in order to get something that is comparable to what people are doing by doing the hardest content.
Yeah, and it's also little things like not having to clear A4 Savage to do A5 Savage. Like,
and I think they do a pretty good job with that right now, because if you aren't doing the hardest stuff, you're getting stuff a little bit slower. And
I think they're trying to get other ways for people to get into, like to get into end game rating or get the exhilaration or feel of end game rating without having to do end game rating. So that's why it's a tricky question.
It is weird. Like I'm trying to read it exactly what he was going off with that. And I don't know. Going into the whole crafted part too. I mean, you're talking about, horizontal stuff also kind of includes crafted gear. When you guys get into 3.4, you're looking for crafted sets, right?
Oh yeah, it's going to be item level 250. Hopefully the weapon's not item level 250. If the weapon's item level 250.
The weapon is 250 confirmed. I'm unhappy about it. I hate it because the reason why I hate it is we're going into the last raid tier, and I understand like at some point there's going to be a primal and that weapon's going to outscale it, but that's usually a month or two after the new raid has come out. And now it's like, okay, well, we did all this work as raiders to clear the content and get the best weapon in the game to literally be obsolete going into the next patch. And it's one of those things where it's like, all right, like why did I spend all this time raiding?
Yeah, it used to be you'd do the raids and you'd keep going. You'd keep grinding out the gear because you wanted the BIS to hit the next tier with. Now it's throw all that crap out, go find a crafter or 6 or 7 or how many you need for all the specializations, and get the fresh new set printed off the line. Go out there, you're ready for the new raid. I can see they're trying to make it more accessible with it, but it's also really just kind of kills the momentum of raiding past the initial, because once you clear it now, it's like, oh, we can get this weapon that we'll use for X number of months and then throw it away for something the crafter made for me. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, like the primal weapon, I'm guessing a primal's going to come out at the same time. They usually have a primal weapon patch, right? And so that was going to have a weapon. A goddess. The goddess.
From the Warring Triad.
Oh, yeah,
I can't remember the name. It starts with an S. I think Sophia.
Yeah.
So
they announced it in live. So.
This primal is going to give us, we're hoping, a 220 weapon, or not 220, 250 weapon, right?
If they follow the pattern, yeah, it'll be 250.
So, but you don't have to do it because you can get crafted, which will likely be better because most likely you can slot it.
You can overmill it, yeah.
And overmill it.
Right.
Again, why I have a problem with this. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, all these raiders that were clearing content, granted, they don't like their numbers, whatever. But you have a handful of people across servers that are clearing this content to get the best weapon in the game to only go into the next patch, and it's like, okay, everybody, free candy. And it's not even like, I can't even see them making the crafted weapon being hard to obtain either, which is the bad thing about it. Is like, oh yeah, well, we put in these one or two new items that you have to go get out of Diadem or something like that. Guess what? People are going to grind Diadem, and a couple hours after patch, someone's going to have a weapon. And it's like, okay, they didn't put in any effort close to what everybody else has been putting in to get the 245 weapons to get a better weapon than what they have. And granted, it's gonna help us as raiders that are going in on patch day and wanting to clear the content. And yeah, we'll probably hit a wall on, say, the second or third turn or something where there's some kind of massive DPS check that we need to figure out and get this 250 weapon like we did with Sephiroth.
But then again, they cleared T13 in 5 days, right?
It's gonna be the same thing this tier, I think. There's gonna be
it's gonna be perfect storm.
It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be killed first week. It's the perfect storm of resetting cooldowns. Now it's gonna shave hours off of progression.
Right. Yeah.
You get the freebie weapon, free 250, everything, meld it all to hell, and that's probably what's gonna be the first clears. Whatever team does that first.
Yeah, and I miss those days of Final Coil. Granted, that's the good part out of it. Or watching, Collision and Lucrezia and Death and Taxes and everybody go at world progression, and you're really paying attention to it, and then you find out, oh, Lucrezia killed it in 5 days. It's like, damn, dude, those guys are good. Like, we want to aspire to be that, and that builds kind of a motivation on us. We know we're not going to be as good as that or have the time to do that, but it gives a little extra motivation to down the content. And for me, like, I don't know, I just feel like SE is just kind of sucking me dry of this stuff because they really messed up in Heavens where they did. And I guess that's where it really kind of comes from, is that they kind of threw all this hard content at us because we were wanting harder content. But now they're like, oh, hey, we made a mistake in making it too hard, even for some of the world prog guys, because what was it? It was 5 weeks on Gordius or something like that.
Yeah, it was over a month.
But I don't know how that was more of like a challenge. Well, Nissi was ridiculous doing it the proper way, right?
It was more a gear check than anything that was really holding them back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was the same thing with Midas, though. Getting to 8 was like that huge gear check at the end, because it wasn't so much the DPS or anything or doing the mechanics. It was literally you didn't have enough health to live in the later phases.
Say your piece, Balana.
I mean, it was a second week clear, so that's not really too much of a gear gate.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't as huge, but it was still there in that first week when Muni and them got there. Because I remember Muni saying something about, oh well, we just can't live through anything currently. Mm-hmm.
And trying to find, and you know what? If they had an Astro and a Scholar, done. Right? They're done. It's so much mitigation there at the end.
But I mean, there's always going to be those gear gates, and yeah, it was a 2-week clear, and even for my raid team, like, we took a month and a half to clear it, but and we could have cleared it even faster than that. We actually had a 2-week break where we had internet issues and real life issues come up. We could have cleared it within about a month or so, and now with this being easier, going back to something like Final Coil, like, we're looking to clear it in a couple weeks and be done. It's like.
I mean, this is. I think I agree with you guys. It's going to be within the first week that it's going to be cleared, and I'm very excited to actually watch that race again. But I'm going to have to get a list of all the people who are actually racing this time, if I can, and find all the different names and then try to keep up with it. But
they'll crop up when they start getting their clears, so that's what I'm looking for.
I'll be really interested to see how many people are actually going to be in the race for it. Like, we're not even. My group, like, we've always just done server progression because we know Elysium's, we know Layla's team. It's like, those guys hit it hard, and we aspire to be that good, but we know, like, hey, we just need to kind of focus on server progression, and that's kind of what we did with Midas. I mean, we got server third on 5 and 7, and fourth on 6 and 8, but. And we even had a team that's no longer there. Rest in peace, Rogue. But they were some of the best players on our server. I mean, it was basically a super team. Those guys are incredibly good.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty.
And we didn't even look at them. It was just me, my team, and FC's other team. Like we were competing with them for second, and then another rogue team came creeping up that we didn't even know about for the longest time, and they were like, all right, well, we're going to compete with you. So we had like 4 or 5 teams that were sitting there competing, but yeah, I mean, even now we're just looking, all right, let's go for server first. We're not even looking at worlds.
And that's kind of interesting because we've had discussions in the past about server first and world progression and comparing those different things. And it's nice to have a different type of, like, Gilgamesh is a world first kind of. You just can't like do server first there unless if you're world first because of Elysium, right? Basically, the people who are there who are actually going to do that stuff. But on other servers, it's really great to have server progression actually happening. One of the comments that I don't think I listed in here, but was talking about Yoshida and them following world progression. And they said that they don't like to do that. They'll do a shout out maybe, like in like a post, a blog post or something, but they don't like to put a lot of emphasis on it because they feel like maybe people don't want that. Do you guys feel like world first raiders don't want to be publicized?
I think we get enough from just the shout out and the letter they put out. That is enough the developers have to do. They don't have to be, doing streams and checking in with the community team, trying to talk to us. I mean, it'd be cool and all that, but I think they'd be starting to show a bit of bias towards this is how you're supposed to play the game. You're supposed to go in there and try to kill as fast as possible and then be done with the content and bored and like, hey, when's the next raid coming out? Yeah. Like, so it's kind of a bad.
So how did you break our mechanics to clear the fight?
they wish they would have learned from Nisi in the first point.
I don't know how that got overlooked. They did talk about a lot about how they did testing and everything else.
Yeah, they crank it out in like a week. Like,
yeah, I just. Well, we won't get too much into that, but yeah, I feel like they could do more. They could be more inviting to this content with putting in betas out there and stuff for people who are doing world first clears. But then again, that kills the world race. But then they don't really, do much with the world race, anyways. But
yeah, I don't think a PTR would really work because, especially with like full on content, because Star Wars: The Old Republic had that, and one of the. We used to compete in it, and one of the biggest things is you'd have all these teams from NAEU go on the PTR, learn the entire fight. Day one, it's done in an hour, and it's like you gave us a month and a half on the PTR to learn the entire fight. It's just not worth. Like, it's whoever can log on and get through the fight faster, but. I'm glad that they kind of respected the privacy of the world first groups because I've listened to a lot of what Layla and Muni have came out and said because I guess they're kind of their spokespeople. Even though Muni I think's gone now.
Yeah, he's doing he's got a different team. He's actually rating with Happy this team.
Yeah, I heard.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But they were kind of the people that came out and spoke about different things. And one of the core things that I took from it was, a world first progression group. And one of the things that they wanted to do is make sure that, hey, 5 other teams clear before we put out videos, before people start, they want people to get in there and learn the fights and learn where you need to put your rotations and go through the content like they did instead of learning from a video and then going back and replicating it. And when you have streams like that and putting them out like there's no point in world progression at that point. I mean, yeah, the shout out and one of the things that he didn't say, but that blog's going to come out, a week or 2 later when they confirm and say, oh, hey, these guys were world first. It's not going to come out the day they clear and it'd be like, ooh, guess what? Even though Reddit will blow up with it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, like the other thing with them too, not releasing videos. I think they would release videos immediately if people wanted that. But I think it was just a respect thing. They were just like, hey, there are people who are trying to do this fight, and they want that privilege of doing the fight without having to look up another resource. But since they're in a world race, there's no way to get away from that information if it's out there. And so that's why they just hold off on it, because they don't want to poison that opportunity for people, right?
Yeah, it's that, and also respect for the world race. Because if you could put the video out there and say there's 2 other teams that are, getting close to world second, but one of them can't figure out the last mechanic in the fight, but the other one's just having like a DPS check problem. The video comes out, the team that, was having the mechanical problem sees how another team does it, they can clear it like that, and then they can pass up the other team. So it kind of, throws a spike in the works of the fairness of competition. Right. That was the original intent of the old guard of holding on to the videos and not releasing them right away.
And I believe Blue Garter did that back in the day as well.
Yeah.
Is that they held off quite a bit too, and that's one of the things that I like, even as a server progression team, not even looking at world progression, especially this patch. One of the things I told my guys is if videos come out, don't look at them. We want to go and figure out this content. And granted, we talked with our other team and stuff, and I'm sure some of the Elysium teams talk as well about a few minor things, but in A5 and what was it, day 2, because we cleared on day 2 and we only got a couple hours the first day, but day 2 we couldn't figure out why people were dying to the debuff, and our other team was oh, hey, well, you might want to cleanse your guys or whatever in the puddles. So, and then after that, it was all right, well, we figured it out with a little bit of help. But going into we want to formulate our own strats. My team does things backwards as it is. So we want to formulate our own strats. I mean, we did it in 8. My warrior, through progression, we ran Warrior Dark Knight in there, obviously, and my Warrior actually tanks Brawler, and he's not supposed to. He's got all the physical stuff, and he takes the orbs and whatnot. So, and we've always done it that way. That's backwards from what most other groups did because they ran Dark Knight with Dark Mind, and it was so much easier to heal, at least.
And that was because they saw some other team do it. And that's also, the other part that you're saying is that the videos kind of kill the creativity because you're oh, this is how they did it, so we should all do it like this because they were the first, right? So that has to be the best way. So why would we learn another way? Why would it kind of stifles the community a bit? And then you get, instead you get people, coming up with different strategies that work, which eventually lead into speed kills, which are, kind of keep people interested in the game between raids.
And then you have, stuff like Vortex or an A6 where everyone has a different way of doing lightning and doing water, and it takes literally 20 minutes to explain it every single time you go in with someone new. There's things like that. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just had a sub every single raid day for the last month, 2, 3.
Frosty reaching down to his bag of salt again.
Let me get my salt back out and just sprinkle it on out there. All right. Well, I mean, that goes over a lot of the things within that article, and I think we hit a lot of these. We jumped back and forth a lot. Is there something else in that article that I'm not mentioning, or one of these questions that you guys wanted to go a little bit more into detail with?
Well, we didn't really touch on the simplifying stats thing, which I don't really. I kind of understand what they're coming from because most people are okay, well, what are these stats for? They seem kind of useless, even though there are some useless stats, parry being one, and they came out, and I don't know how they're going to simplify it, saying, oh, well, we're going to rework parry somehow into the game and make it a more useful stat, but, I wish some of them, like Det, for example. Det on a monk is absolutely I can't say completely useless, but it's less useful than what it was back in Coil because of auto attacks. And they said they were going to do some rework with that too, but it's you took down the potency.
Real quick, the auto attack change they announced in the live letter is you no longer need to be facing the target to auto attack. Just as long as you're in range, it'll happen.
So basically, you're going to be auto attacking while you're taking care of an ad or something
Yeah. You don't even need to face the boss. You can turn away and keep hitting.
It says it's only auto attacks. It's hard for me to be too upset about. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, when you're running away, being able to attack it while you're running away or get a little bit of damage is kind of odd. I can't see that being a big deal when you're actually fighting in rages or you're fighting trying to kill him before you cast. I don't know, because you're going to keep casting if you could. So I can't see it having a huge effect. It's just wonky.
It's a bad sign because it's taking skill out of the game.
Yeah. Well, and I agree, but like that's kind of in my mind a kind of a minimal thing because
Yeah.
it's like how much like auto attacks are giving you what maybe 1 or 2 extra percent if you change it the way that they're gonna do it. How many people like I want to meet the guy who went back in his logs and went and looked at every auto attack he was missing and how much damage that actually correlated to him missing out of his DPS.
Does that
like
mean everyone's
really
going to stand
wanna
on the
know.
boss now?
Well, summoners already do it. Black
Yeah.
mages kind of should do it, but they don't want to have to dodge other things.
So healers, should they just like stand next to the boss? No, I don't know.
I mean, you could already do it. You just need to face
Yeah.
the boss as you're doing it.
Well, and I think it's going to help. It's really going to help casters, especially summoners who love to book smack. But it's helping like melee DPS do it. Like I don't know about all that.
Who I think is going to help the most is people who use legacy controls. There's basically no reason
People
not to
use
use
that?
it now. Yeah, people on controllers, people on legacy controls. That's they have trouble, facing the boss or something. So
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like it seems so. I understand like that. That's a part of like that super extra. Just like at the end, you're like, how am I going to get auto attacks in? Then you're like that much more of a player. But like I don't see that. There's no one in my raid that even thinks about that.
What?
Right. All right.
I want to know why it's so hard to face the boss though. Like I just don't. Every controller player I've watched, they just lock on. They're facing the boss. Like
Yeah.
it's just.
So during the phase away mechanics, you can still do damage to the boss. There we go. There's something that is actually going to help with. So
I mean that. I guess that's a good thing.
right.
I guess as a scholar, I can stand on the boss now, and I don't have
You
to worry.
attack it, turn away, and you're okay.
But anyway, I think I distracted us. Blizz,
No,
we were talking about substats.
Yeah, substats.
Oh yeah, like what are they gonna do to it to simplify it? I just don't.
It feels too simple to me right now. Like, how simpler can it get? Do they just say, "Here's a damage stat. You build this stat to get more damage. Here's one for accuracy,"
or just build main stat. Like I don't get it because it's so cookie cutter right now. Seeing as debt isn't as high a priority for a lot of the classes anymore because of what they did in changes from Binding Coil to Heaven's Ward. A lot of your classes, most of them at least, just stack crit. And it's one way. It's like main stat crit, and if you get some debt and skill speed or spell speed along the way, minus Black Mage. And I don't know too much about summoners, so you may have to correct me here. Yeah, but I figured it's crit. But Black Mage is like, okay, well, you want to stack main stat, spell speed, and crit. Like you don't even really care about debt, so it's like.
Yeah. And see, it seems like it's already so simple to me that it doesn't really make sense because you don't really have too much to work. You have a couple of pieces of gear to work with, 2 pieces of gear, and sometimes it doesn't really work out anyways. And so it seems odd. I mean, simplifying it by taking out accuracy, okay. Maybe I can get with that, right?
That was another point I was about to go on. Is the whole taking out accuracy thing? Like what?
So
like
putting accuracy in the game adds a balance, right? It says, hey, you have to actually deal with this mandatory stat that you have to make sure you have the right number for. And so it doesn't really allow you for as many options with the other stats, right? Or am I wrong? I feel like it limits you by having accuracy because you have to build towards something that's just like you get it to this number and you're done. Now you have to, so you can't actually go towards in one direction. You just like, this is the most optimal because this is how I build up my accuracy to get to that point.
I don't know how they're going to do it because if they just take out accuracy and leave it at that, I'm going to love it as a healer because I can just stack whatever the hell I want to on my scholar and don't have to worry about anything. But I think that's going to be a little too OP. Right. And they're going to have to do something as far as balancing. Now, what they're going to do, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they just make it to where sometimes you're going to miss. You can't fix it. You'll miss 5% of everything you do.
Oh, that'd
be the fucking worst.
Yeah, that just sounds horrible.
To add the other part, can you imagine? Could you imagine lining up like this big blast?
Your entire rotation screwed. You're done. Sorry.
Yeah, you missed your Ockmorn. Okay, well there goes 10K. Like,
No, it's even if you miss your Fester, you don't get a Aether Trail stack. If you miss, you don't
Miss
get
your
the stack.
Bane.
So then you don't
all
get
right.
to go in the Dread Room trance. So then your entire rotation's fucked for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty awful. But
missed your fourth ability as a Dragoon. Bye bye, Blood of the Dragon. Like,
yeah. So, but my read on it from what the translation was, it wasn't that they're looking to simplify stats, but not add any more complexity because we already have this gap in skill. We don't need to have this extra gap in being able to plan out the right set of gear. Because I mean, our choices right now are really fucking simple. It's pretty straightforward. It's like you find this, you that, and you can even balance it out a bit with adding the materia in there now. I think from what they're saying, it's likely they'll move in a way of removing accuracy, just because directly quote right here is, "We would like to keep it as simple as possible so players can focus on the content itself." So,
which I'm not too upset about,
yeah.
but the only thing is if they do that, the only way I see them balancing anything is they're going to have to add a certain level of healer DPS into the fights. They say currently, well, when we go in and we do these DPS checks, or we do, the checks on the bosses as far as how much damage you need to clear the content, it's only the DPS and the tanks that we worry about.
That was
in a normal setup.
They said that about Final Coil. I don't think they've really restated that since Heavensward came out, though. Because if you look at Gordius, like,
yeah, well, I know. I've always been skeptical, and I know they add some limit of it, but I think it's really minimal. I think they're going to have to add a lot more if they add just that purely, no accuracy. Healers can just do whatever the hell they want.
You know what? Yeah, I'd be fine if they said you don't have any more damaging spells, healers. You can only heal. You just sit there and heal all the time.
Frosty.
Well, you can't.
I'm not playing healer anymore. I don't care. I think it's just.
Hey,
the thing is, you can't have a class like that ever since WoW came out and made everybody need to be able to solo. I mean, back in the day, you have like EverQuest or things or classes like basically only have heals and they kind of suck to kill things. But now everybody's got to be able to be a solo player and get through the story and kill the mobs. So.
So the other note about all these stats and everything, I think it's just hilarious to think about. They give you a choice, and I feel like they just need to remove the attribute selections while you're leveling up. It just. What's the point? You pick one thing, right? The only thing that I feel makes sense is giving classes the ability to either go vitality or mind. Vitality, or if they're a healer, vitality or mind. If they're a cat,
I think Xeno would disagree with you. I don't know if you watched his stream the other night, but he went full strength white mage. So I think he was just trying to tilt his chat, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't make any sense that that's not even a choice. That's not even. It's like strength. This doesn't even work for me. I'm a black mage. Why would I have an option to click and completely screw everything up? It just doesn't.
There were at least some kind of interesting choices before, especially like Black Mage, where you needed like 1 or 2 extra points of piety to be able to do an extra fire cast, or if there's like a huge spike damage in a fight, you maybe haven't gotten any drops on your class yet, you could throw some points into vitality to make it through. But outside of that, that's like the only interesting things about it. Other than that, you just dump it in your main stat. So
I don't know. I think the stat system right now is too simple and too one way, and I would like it if, again, a job could pick a stat, go for it, and have a slightly different way of playing their job than if they went towards a different stat. Just giving different play styles to the jobs by just choosing what stats you're going for, but I don't see that happening. So
yeah, well, we've seen how SC has been able to balance classes off the start, so it's to me it's like either you get rid of it or you just make it more complex, and I don't think they're going to go the complex route. If anything, they're just going to be done with it. And it's one of those things where, like, I agree, like, you just put it in one stat, like whatever your main stat for your class is, that's what you're going for. Granted, like Balana said, like before, you had your tanks go full strength because you didn't need all the extra vit, or vit didn't help your actual damage. I know some parry build paladins back in the day, would definitely make sure that they went into strength and stuff. So
yeah. there's no
it's
choice
just-
anymore, and it feels. And I hope they don't make it simpler. If they leave it as it is, or make it a little bit more interesting, just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not that there's no choices, that there's no interesting choices. Like you can choose to be bad or you can choose to be good, basically. So
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as the secondary sets, because like I know they touched on that a little bit. Like, what are you going to do with crit and det or skill speed and spell speed? Like, you just with spell speed and skill speed, you just brought that into the game to where it was quote unquote supposed to help dots, and which how much it actually does, nobody. Well, I guess somebody's probably done the math, but I haven't looked it up. It doesn't seem like it does a whole lot. So
I think it's about equivalent to a point of debt, but it only affects your dots, and
Yeah.
so it's
yeah. So I mean, it's like, all right, well, it's pretty minimal for what it does, and so what are you gonna do? Just scrap them all together? Like, we're just not gonna have any crit or debt? Okay, well then why do we need like materia to put certain things in? We're only gonna have one materia that we need to put in.
We just got materia back, guys. We got it back in the last tier, right?
It's going to be as worthless as the elemental materia that's in the game. I know that's a 1.0 relic, and the whole elemental system and stuff was supposed to be something that they were supposed to carry over, which they didn't. And I wish that they would put that into the game and kind of work that in somehow.
Look at Balana. He's like, what the?
I'm having flashbacks to WoW raids where you had to grind out
get all the fire
elemental
gear.
resist gear and like
Yeah.
the nature resist gear and the shadow resist gear for BT, and just like it was something to do. It soaked up a lot of time, but it just wasn't an interesting mechanic in the fight. It's like, okay, for this boss, our strategy is we put on our shadow resist gear and we take less shadow damage. The end.
Right.
Yeah, no, they definitely have to do some work on it for it to actually work. But I cringe every time I go to and I'm looking for materia. I'm scrolling through and it's like fire materia, and they even added 5s, I think, of them, and it's like, fire, water, lightning. And I'm like, why are these in here? Like, I get it.
Just to trigger you,
Yeah.
man. That's it.
Yeah,
That's all it
to
is.
trigger me and to transmute into hopefully getting a 5, which never happened. So,
Yeah.
or if it is, you just get another elemental materia.
So what other points are we missing here? Is that pretty much kind of things? Was there anything in a live letter that, I mean, they're resetting cooldowns, right? That's something that we're like,
That's huge.
That's huge.
I only caught the front half of it, so it was resetting cooldowns every wipe. We're getting a new raid, guys, in case you didn't know. We're getting one new trial, extreme mode, or normal and extreme. We're getting hard mode, Great Gabu Library.
oh.
That was the big old switch up right there. We thought it'd be Snorcloak, but
Yeah,
Snorcloak is a very nice place to relax, man. I enjoy it.
I actually enjoyed the library, so that'll be interesting to go through.
I'm thinking that'll probably be the story quest this time, because the other one's like some Ixali island I can't even remember the name of.
No, the story quest is always like the new one, isn't it? They never go back to a hard mode and do it.
They haven't yet.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Maybe they should.
Yeah.
I hope the fights are a lot better than that Sorkai bullshit. That was a joke. Like the two new ones recently were just like, huh? Like, or not Sorkai, the other one, whatever the other one was.
Hullbreaker Hard.
Hard. Yeah.
Those fights are.
Yeah, that one was ridiculous. Now Sorkai was kind of cool. I mean,
It was a novel mechanic. You had all the platforms and the boss break the platforms.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I know it was like a trial. I wasn't really happy about facing Horace Volgar though. So
But honestly, how much do you guys care after you clear it the first couple of times, right? I mean, do you still care that it's like a good, interesting dungeon, or is it going to be a boring dungeon no matter how interesting they try to make it?
that's one of the things that with this current set that I've just been like, I don't even want to do expert anymore. I used to do my expert every damn day just to cap out and stuff. Even when I didn't need to, I would just go in there because I enjoyed doing the content. These is just no, like I don't have any interest in it.
Yeah.
That's all right. They'll look shiny for the first day or so, and that's what we can hope
Yeah.
for. And each of them will have 4 bosses. So let's do this. Let's cut out those dungeons and just get 12 bosses right there. We're done.
That'd be
Agreed.
nice. but they need something for the 4-man content. They need something for people who don't want
Palace
to
of the
raid.
Dead,
They
right?
need to.
That's 4-man
There's
content.
everything going there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But onto the point of if it gets boring or not, I think one of the big reasons why it gets boring is they got really gun shy after Wanderer's Palace and AK speed runs back in the day when people were chewing through those. And like, if you're not doing this much DPS, we're only taking a Bard and a Black Mage and a Paladin for Hallowed Ground, so we can clear this in 5 minutes. And that made it interesting. That made it interesting to run, do as fast as you could. But now it's like you pull 2 packs, you run into a wall. You have to kill all the packs to get through the wall, and then you go and you pull 1 pack, and there's a bridge that needs to appear after you kill them. So
I'm fine with it if you only had to do that dungeon once a day, but if it was something that you could farm constantly and it would actually be something positive towards you, like if you had an optimal comp and that optimal comp is the reason why you guys would get something as quickly as possible, I would be kind of upset about it, because when I played Guild Wars 2 and you went into the end game, it was literally 4 of one class and 1 more class. The exact same. If you didn't have, and that was all in-game content. If you wanted to farm properly, that's how you farmed. You just
doing fragments.
Yeah, I hated it. Like I wanted to play the game as I wanted to be a tank. Although that game didn't have tanks, it didn't have healers. It had people who just dodge stuff, and you're like, everyone else kind of sucked, I guess. I don't know. You just had to do really good damage, or it wasn't like you weren't doing anything.
You had to press your 5 buttons. That's why it's a 5-button game. And that's why this game doesn't need to go to that, because it's going to be so derp easy and it's going to be so boring. Like, I've gone back and forth to Guild Wars a couple times, and I can only play it for like a couple months at a time before I'm like, I'm so done with this. Like, I can do so many different builds, but they all kind of do the same fucking thing. Like, stop it. There's 5 buttons. Like, I need something else. And granted, they have their masteries and stuff now, which are kind of like skill trees and stuff to go through, but you still have the 5 or 6 same buttons. So you can't really do anything with it. And, to go back to the speed running thing, even with like the newer ones, well, semi-new ones, Lost City, like Lost City Hard, we used to do speed runs of that. Granted, it wasn't like 1 or 2 minute runs or whatever else that we were trying to competing for, but it was like 10, 11, 12 minute runs or whatever to try to get through the content and see who could do it faster. But that's something between, me and FC mates that we just kind of make up.
right.
We've gone back and done stupid comps like bring out a summoner with Titan and have him be the tank and just go a healer and 2 DPS on a Titan, or 3 DPS on a Titan.
Run Force Summoner. It used to be the best way to do WP.
Yeah, like, we would come up with crazy stuff to do, but it's one of those things where it's like, I agree, they were really gun shy, because that was one of the big things back then, that they were just like, oh my god, no, we can't. People are talking about DPS. This is against TOS and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, come on, guys. We know you guys use DPS meters to try to gear your content. Like, it's obvious. I don't know why you're so against it.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has been wanting to put a DPS meter inside the game. That way nobody can really complain, but they don't want that, I guess, skill gap to really be noticed, even though everybody uses ACT that I know of. I mean, some people are against it, but
Unless you're a PlayStation player, right?
I mean, that's kind of the tone of this whole article, is that they're trying to grind the game into some sort of vanilla, tasteless paste that's everybody can enjoy together. But I mean, when you start removing the difficulty, when you start removing the skill caps, when you start removing this, start removing that, the game just becomes more and more boring and just becomes a grind, a slog. You show up, you press button, get loot, and then you're done for the week.
And that's what's going to kill the game, not making it harder. I mean, making it harder would segregate a lot of people, but SE has brought out other content like Nidhogg or like some of the trials and that they've done, and the new dungeons, and now with like the deep dungeon stuff, and they have other content out there. Like, you have to have something there for the other people who want to do something past that and push themselves a little bit harder than others.
Achievements.
Yeah.
Achievements done. Throw it out there.
Yeah.
We're done.
I mean, you could, if you go and you look at the number of World of Warcraft subscribers just throwing it back to the best example we have, because the biggest MMO that went around, it peaks during Wrath of Lich King, which was one of the hardest raid tiers, one of the hardest expansions. And then they kept cutting it down, the difficulty, the complexity, the skill, and the sub numbers followed. They tried to make it appeal to everybody and appealed to nobody.
Yep. I can agree with you. I mean, like, because once people are, it's so easy that people just burn through it, they're done anyways, right? Nothing else to really do, and they're bored and they leave.
And you need to have those things that, you see the guy standing around the hub city and he's got the kick-ass sword of whatever, and you're like, dude, I want to get that. How do I get that? Oh, I gotta grind up this, I gotta do that, I gotta fight the boss. So it's, instead of just like, oh, I just queue for Raid Finder and I can get a copy of it that, I can't dye it, but it's, looks exactly the same, so now I got a cool sword.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want about WoW, they had good raids at that point, right? Those were good raids in Wrath of the Lich King. Like, all those, I don't know. Ulduar was, like, amazing.
Ulduar was the best raid in any game I've ever played, and I've played a lot of MMOs.
Yeah. And then they had something they've never been able to, like, get to again, which was Karazhan, right? They didn't have that castle feel kind of fight. But that whole place, that's, like, the biggest mention of, like, this is one of the best raids that's ever existed. Final Fantasy can do that. They can do that, guys. This is a possibility. Right?
Well, they need to have the drive to do it, though. Like, they need to kind of, and that's why I say it goes back to the community, is where, especially with NA, like, I don't know exactly how EU's looking because I haven't looked at their stats or anything, but just seeing that, oh, hey, 3 times Japanese players are clearing over NA at least, or NAEU. Well, if you look at their communities, you go into their party finders, everybody has steps of doing certain raids. They do raids by party finder. You don't go into your statics or anything else. You learn that shit in party finder and stuff because people want to learn to be better and down the content. We don't do that. Like, I could pull up Exodus right now.
Poor Exodus.
Let me pull up
Gilgamesh
here. Oh, we only have like half a page. What is this? Oh, I guess it's midnight on a Friday.
On a Friday.
I mean, it is late, but just looking at it from day to day, there may be 1 or 2, and it's usually, oh, hey, I need a filling. Can you come help? It's not like, oh, hey, this is a learning party. We're learning this first thing. New and old player, or new and veteran players are welcome. Obviously don't be a douchebag and come in and tell people their shit. But like, if you want to come in and help. And there's literally none of that. And it's sad to see. And I know Arthur's has came out and said that quite a few times. It's like the difference between NA and Japan are so drastic in their community that it's unreal. It's like, we're just too pig-headed and selfish, I guess.
All right, so to go back to this too, where he is talking about rotations being very difficult, do you think he's aiming that at NA or JP or just everyone in general?
I mean, we Japan may have 3 times their clear rate, but that's still only 3%.
Right.
So I think it's kind of that's still a very small section of the community that's experiencing the content that they're busting their asses to create. So, I think it applies to all communities, really. It's just a different mindset between the two on approaching content is why they have a higher clear rate than we do.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely a mindset thing. And I think a lot of it comes from kind of their culture too, because the Japanese aren't one for confrontation. Like, they're not going to sit there and yell at you and tell you your shit or this or that. They may secretly, like, innerly be upset about it.
They'll just not say anything and disband, and then they'll reform without you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Where, at least for NA, in my experience with a lot of people, and this comes from just even my static, is like, some people, we don't like criticism. Some people don't, or they can't take it, even if it's constructive and it's not something mean or anything like that. And then on the flip side of that, then everybody, it's like, oh, I'm right, I'm doing what I want, or, they just don't have the same drive, or, they don't have the same want to learn or listen to anybody. And then that leads to people giving up, less people wanting to raid. It's a domino effect across the whole community as a whole. And then we get these things like elitism and toxicity being thrown around, and we turn into a League of Legends match in our communities. It's like, it's stupid to me. It really is, because, you know, that's one of the things is, like, I've tried to help different teams, and matter of fact, some of the teams from other FCs that have left, you know, our server already and gone somewhere else because they're like, oh, I'm better than you guys. Let me go to this raiding community. And then they get over there and they find out, not you, Frosty.
Okay.
but they go over there and they find out that those people over there are on a different level than them, and they're like, oh, I guess I am really shit, or I need to really improve somewhere. And then they reflect back and it's like, yeah, maybe I should have listened. Like, I hate going. I've had guys in my raid team go in and help other groups in the past, and they get shit on by these other teams for helping them out. And it's like, you you asked me to help you. I'm helping you. Why are you giving me this confrontation? It's silly to me. And I guess that's just us as a society, and I can't say everybody, but a majority of what I've seen on NA servers as a whole has been that way, and it needs to change. It really does. It starts with the community.
Do you think making rotations easier for these people who are not great is going to make the game stay at no, you should. So no. I kind of have the whole idea that they should leave it exactly where it's at with difficulty, exactly where it's at. People will get better. And people, over time, things will be more straightforward for people coming into it, and there will be better guides out there to kind of direct people to... Having this level of difficulty is good, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, the thing is, you say people will get better, but the flip side is that people will get better or they'll quit.
It's true.
So that's why you had the big fall-off during Gordius, is they didn't get better, so they quit. Right. And that's kind of, I guess, what SE is trying to prevent. That's what they're the biggest. They're in the business of getting people to play their game to pay the subscription. So they're trying to maximize the amount of that. I mean, they want to make a cool game on top of that. They seem really passionate about that. But at the bottom line, they need to make a game that can pull in the most number of subscribers, and they believe they can do that through dumbing it down and making it appeal to a wider player base, which I think is kind of a fallacy to think about.
So should they make it to where you don't have to watch buffs and you don't have to watch cooldowns as much, so you could focus more on the fight instead of, like, okay, so if you play Machinist, especially at first, right, you look at your hotbars and you try to glance up every once, like glance down, glance up, glance down, glance up, and you're basically doing that because you're looking for procs, you're looking for buffs and everything else that's going on. Should they limit that more so that people will have an easier time going into the content, or is that taking the skill level down too much?
I think it's taking the skill level down too much, because honestly, like, when you're getting into a raid setting, especially Savage Raid, like, you have to go in knowing, hey, this is going to be challenging. I'm going to have to push myself that extra little bit in order to do what I need to do for the rest of my team. You have to understand, like, this isn't a singular thing. This isn't all about you. There's no one person that's just going to flat out carry a team. Like, you have seven other people with you. You have to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing, at least, so you're not letting them down. And you know, that's all part of it. One of the biggest things that I hate about this game right now is that they have server-based ticks. Everything runs off the server. Well, your connection to their server may be different from your buddy's connection to their server. So there's a latency issue there. That's one of the biggest problems that they have. And I don't know how they're going to alleviate that, but that's one of the biggest reasons that I see that they have.
Maybe that's with the new expansion.
Maybe.
Well, maybe they'll be like, we're going to completely redo exactly how the internal parts of our system work, and it's not going to lag like that anymore.
That'd be great, because if you played 2.0, it was worse.
Yeah, it was terrible. Well, like now, like I have my ninjas, like my ninja on my team. He used to have to use a VPN. Several of my members currently still have to use VPNs just to cut down some of that latency. And it's stupid that they have to go to third-party usage of different software to play the game properly, to weave in their GCDs.
I mean,
it's not that they don't have the skill.
The issue with that mostly comes from the horrible internet infrastructure of the United States, though, because JP servers have no issue with that. Apparently, the EU servers have no issue with that. So,
well, yeah,
I don't think that's something that SE can really.
But no, it goes a little bit beyond them. I mean, because you have different things, whether you're fiber optic or you're still copper line, and a lot of places are still copper line, and a lot of companies, especially like Time Warner, who's trying to buy up everybody, Comcast, who's trying to buy up everybody. Like, they have so many different clients in different areas that they literally have to dig up the entire country to put in new line, and they don't have the means or the resources to really do that on a global base. So, I understand it kind of goes past them, but one of the biggest things too that I hate is this game has the longest freaking global cooldown I have ever seen.
Oh, holy shit! He went angry. He just raged out.
I knocked my camera off. Hold on.
I'm looking at your carpet right now, man. It's,
let me see if I can find.
Is that a piece of like pizza, like a sausage or something there? I don't know.
Oh, you're so full of it. Yeah, I knocked my camera off. Man, see, look, y'all are getting me all tilted.
It's
and
okay. It's good. It's good.
But, like, it has the longest cooldown I have ever, or global cooldown I've ever seen.
I think that works, though. That can work if you are able to have the off global cooldowns in between for you to press. And so that kind of pushes it back into this whole thing to where you're fitting in these other moves. And I don't remember if that was in a lot of like what WoW did or other MMOs I played, but having abilities that are all like on this one cooldown, then finding ways to weave in other abilities is kind of an interesting concept to me.
Yeah, in other games, you would just pop those off the cooldowns. They wouldn't have, you can hit them all at the same time basically, and they all go off. There wasn't like an animation lock for an off the global cooldown.
Yeah.
So,
and then you could vary it depending on skill speed and spell speed, but no one stacks it. So I mean, you don't really see that really happening too much, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Except for black mages. Okay, black mages.
They had to slip that in there.
Yeah.
But see the black mage thing. Yeah, okay. If you get it low enough, you can get a couple extra procs off during your Enochians, especially like the second and third rotation through. But honestly, black mages just take it because they have long cast times, so they just cut down the cast time equals more DPS for them.
Yeah, black mages really like spell speed, if we want to get into this, because one, they have the huge cast time, so you get more percentage dropped from every point of spell speed, so it's more valuable straight there. And also, they're just trying to get through their fire into their blizzard phase, back to their fire, and having more spell speed lets you rip through that faster. You get more cycles into a fight, and that's why it's really good for them.
All right, let's try to underail this real quick and bring it back to what we were talking about here.
My camera already fell off.
Yeah, it fell. So to kind of sum it up, you guys don't want them to change really anything with this player skill level. Like right now, do you guys feel like it's at a good point?
I think we're at a pretty good point. It feels
and this is
a
in
little bit higher
regards
than
to just
rotations.
Rotations in general.
I like where it is right now. I could see an argument to decrease it. I couldn't see an argument to increase it.
Okay. So if they decreased it a little bit, but made fights mechanically like a little bit more difficult, more interesting, more involved, to where you're not paying attention to that rotation anymore, you're paying more attention to the fight, this is kind of a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
Blizz?
Yeah, I mean, if they can find a way to balance it without breaking the class entirely, because one of the things that we were joking about with Dragoon earlier was they were just going to make Blood of the Dragon a toggleable ability where you're just going to toggle it on, and you can just gear Skogul for days, and it's going to turn, if you did that, it's going to turn Dragoon into the best DPS hands down in the game. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I can kind of... There's some things they definitely shouldn't do to make things just... keeping that balance is going to be hard. I don't think they're going to be able to fix this stuff until 4.0, and we're going to have to see how 4.0 works out, right? We won't be seeing a lot of these changes until then, which is, I'm guessing, 9 months out.
Next summer.
Next summer. They said they were on schedule.
Next summer.
Next summer. Okay.
Well, from what I was from what I heard at least, and I forget where I heard it, but they were actually ahead of schedule from where
that's what they said. But then again, like, people say a lot of shit.
Well, I know. Yeah, look at 15. That thing's been in production for years, and it's still getting pushed back. So, like,
remember the last Final Fantasy game that was a core game? That came out with the
14.
PlayStation 4. No, not
PlayStation
that one.
3.
That's an MMO. That's an
Oh.
MMO, man. Skip. That's 13 was Final Fantasy. Then 14 was the MMO. It's part of it, but Final Fantasy game to me is a single player game. This is just like a nice little cool thing that you could do in between waiting. It seems kind of weird. That's like,
Sure.
all right.
You
don't have to
we've only had to
agree.
wait decades for the next one.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. But yeah, we're gonna wait forever before another one of MMOs come out. Was it gonna be Final? You think they would do another Final? Because they went 11, then they did 12 and 13, right?
well,
So that means we have 15 and 16 before 17 might be another MMO, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but like 11 lasted for quite some time. I mean, they had a lot of expansions for, well, quote unquote expand. I guess you could call them expansions, installments to their game.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't think we'd see another Final Fantasy MMO for at least another 7 years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
it depends on how they take this model. If they do something and kind of improve on it, on the longevity of it, at least, as far as keeping a good balance between your hardcore and, well, your mid-core hardcore and your casual base, then, you know, I can see them lasting possibly for something like WoW has, what is it, like 14, 15, 16 years now, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
16 years. It came out 2000, right?
No, it was
Or 2002.
2001. I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking
I'm
2000.
making guesses. I'm just
It's
saying
like 14
dates.
or 15 years, something like that.
It was 2004. Yeah, I think they're at 12 years now.
Yeah,
Oh, was
Okay.
it 2000?
maybe somebody in chat will verify. I'm sure.
Yeah. There's.
I was
there we
playing,
go,
like-
there's the chat.
Yeah,
I was-
yeah.
I was playing RuneScape in those days, so
No, yeah. So, last summary note here: them making dungeon or the raid much easier next tier, at the level of what Final Coil might be like. Good, bad.
Sure. It'll be a
Sure.
good way to cap it off. That's like,
Okay.
I can't say it's like great or bad or whatever. But sure.
It's just
Why
like
not?
making it so easy, especially for hardcore players. That drought's going to be really insane.
Your Final Coil was quite the drought.
Yeah, and so was, I guess you could also say that Alexander Gordius was a pretty big drought too, right? But yeah, so I guess we'll see how that works out. Blizz,
I'm gonna be sorely disappointed. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with this story, because the Heavensward story, as far as the raid has gone, is absolute shit compared to Binding Coil. Like,
you're going in time.
yeah, time manipulation and this and that. If fucking Alexander doesn't get up out of the damn water and we have to fight him in the middle of the hinterlands, I'm done.
Look, WoW already did it, right? They've done crazy stuff with time, and so did Star Trek, the new Star Trek movie when it came out. That was a good movie. They did stuff with time. I'm sure they could do okay with this, right?
I mean, hopefully
trying.
they. Well, I know. I hopefully they bring another like CGI movie like they did from Final
I
Coil.
think they said something about that, right?
I'm hoping they do,
Hopefully.
and they make it pretty epic. I hope we get away from this whole goblin bullshit in Alexander. Alexander's supposed to be a greater primal, or an
You
elder
got goblins, man. I don't think you're getting away from.
Yeah.
They're
No, we
done.
went. I think why people were really disappointed with the story is we went from, holy crap, it's Louis Suarez, the guy from the cutscene, and oh, damn, Bahamut's still alive, and now we're at Gobby Cheesemake.
Yeah,
Uplander,
I mean,
no
that's
coming.
been like what people have been preaching about and just complaining and just saying, "Hey, this doesn't make sense. Why'd you do this?" And I hopefully that means 4.0 is going to be good. So,
well, the coolest thing about it is fucking Megazord in 8. Like,
no, they changed.
Or
They
Voltron,
fixed
whatever
the
you wanna call
style of how they did the raids and how it looked and how it felt was much better within this tier. And I'm guessing they're going to repeat that, right? But they're just going to make it a little easier. That's all I can imagine. So
I want to know where the fucking cat in 7 came from. Like, I didn't even pay attention to the damn story that much. Like, where did some random ass cat come from?
I think that
it's a cool mechanic, but it's like,
you know, in the anime, how you have to have like the cute character, mascot character around. It's the mascot Alexander for Alexander.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, but it's just to me the story, like it's Alexander. It's a Elder Primal Fortress.
Yeah.
If you go and look at Type Zero's Alexander, motherfucker blew up a whole damn army in an instant. Like,
this guy's gonna do
Alexander
it. You have to stop him from doing it. Oh no, Blizz, your camera. You're in your angry pose. Wait, there we go. We're back. Oh, wait.
There we go. And well, it'll just do what it's gonna do.
Yeah, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. But okay, so we've done a lot of venting today. We've done a lot of things to discuss our feelings and emotions. Are you guys still in the same kind of mindset of Armageddon? This is going to be bad. They're doing stupid stuff. Are you feel a little bit better about it, or are you guys still just?
Until they come out with more information on this, on exactly what they're gonna do, it's like the end of days currently. Because honestly, like I was telling you earlier, Frosty, like this is hearing this kind of information, and I've been trying to be kind of cordial about it and saying, okay, well, with like since Heaven's Word really, and all the changes that they've been trying to make, and they kind of flopping, and all this other stuff that they've been trying to change, and it's really not working out. Like, I've been trying to be positive about it, but it's getting to the point to where now you're taking the one thing I enjoy in the game away from me, which is skill and raids. And it's like, to me, it's just kind of crumbling. I don't mind helping out the casual player base, but we need to do it a different way. Like, we just can't. That's why I laughed at this when they said, "Oh, the game's too hard. It means the game's ending," or, you know, the content's too hard. Midas mechanics are too hard. You know, Gordius DPS requirements were too hard. That's why, you know, it's going to be the end of the game. No, it's
so
the
let's
exact
say that
opposite.
they basically up the DPS requirements a little bit and down the mechanics a little bit. Does that make a good raid? You just take a little bit less from both of those, combine it together?
I think they'd probably strike a better balance.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hope that's what they do and not make it super insanely easy. But
I'm crossing my fingers that this raid tier coming up in September is not going to be face roll easy.
They announced the date. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah, the
27th.
That's right. Yeah.
The next month. Yeah. Not today.
No.
It's not happening today. It's happening a month from now.
Yeah, we had already guessed it. We were kind of because they're on kind of the same timeline, so we were
and
just
that
like,
gives you guys
well,
2 weeks before FanFest, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why we're hoping to get cleared in a week.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna hit it hard, but it's gonna be really disappointing if we clear it like super fast.
All right. So I think this is good. We've talked a lot. We've been a while. It's really late for Blizz, definitely. What time is it for you right now, Blizz?
3:16 a.m.
So thank you guys for coming on board.
Yeah, thanks for sticking it out, Blizz, and thanks for inviting me on, Frosty.
I'm usually up this late anyways, so it's no big deal. So that's why, like, Frosty was like, is that gonna be okay with you since we're starting at like 1 a.m. your time? I was like, yeah, that's fine. Y'all are on Pacific time, 1 a.m. It's whatever. So
I go to sleep when the sun comes up,
Well, not quite that. In about an hour is usually when I go to bed. So.
But yeah, you guys were definitely fun to talk with. I'm glad you guys came on the show. Again, sorry we couldn't do this live, but it's all right. You guys are going to hear our thoughts. And you guys possibly might be in the chat too, and I'm guessing they would know by now at this point of the show if you were in the chat or not. So
a little bit late to be saying that, Frosty.
Maybe, hopefully, I'll create a little intro video like I did on the last one, and I'll mention that, just so I can say, hey,
is it before or after you're gonna play 1-800-CAT-BUTT again?
It's gonna. I might just play it at the beginning and the end. Just screw it. Just play Cat-BUTT all the time, right?
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming on the show. Blizz, do you want to do shout-outs?
Yeah, my raid team, even though they're gonna troll me.
I know. I feel it every day, man. Every day.
Yeah. So do I. Trust me. So do I. Yeah, and just to you, thank you for letting me on again. This is my third time, and
I think so.
You know, I'm really shocked that you keep having me back because every time I come on here, I just rage. It's like
it's good every once in a while to rage a little bit. Yeah.
Because I mean, we had raid team talk the first time or something like that, right? And then we had raid leader talk.
Yeah.
And then now we're back to state of rating. So
yeah, a lot of stag. I know you're heavily involved with rating, and you're pretty passionate about it, and so it makes sense to kind of have you on. And Balana's just handsome to look at, and that's kind of why.
He has a sexy beard, that's for sure.
You go cut me some trees.
Yeah, I just shaved my beard. I got some ingrown hairs, and they were bothering me, so I had to.
Sometimes you're just not manly enough to deal with the ingrown hairs, man. I don't know what to
do. Dude, they were bugging me, but I'm growing it back out. Don't worry.
Okay, Balana, do you want to do any shout outs, man?
Yeah, it's the typical shout-outs to Elysium, shout-outs to everybody on Gilgamesh, and I guess shout-outs to everybody watching. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching the show. If you're watching it live, quote-unquote live, you're watching it maybe a VOD, maybe you're watching the podcast, maybe you're sitting on the bus going to work, listening to a little bit of Final Fantasy. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sticking it out with us, guys. And I appreciate all the viewers who are watching this not live and maybe even still enjoying the show, because I know the live aspect's there, and that's always a fun thing to have in there. But this is the only workaround I have with being a full-time 50 to 60-hour job that I have to work outside of doing this. This is the only way I can do it some weekends, and I appreciate you guys sticking it out with us. Thank you very much for you guys. If you're in the chat collecting questions, thank you for collecting those questions and answering them. Well, not collecting them, but responding to them. For any work that you do doing that. And thank you. Every single show I say it, Blizzana. Thank you very much for the artwork. I appreciate it.
You told me you were going to get back with me for some more stuff, and never did.
I haven't had the need for it, man.
I'm disappointed in you, Frosty.
Find me the need, and then maybe we'll go and do that.
I'm just kidding with you. I don't know what else that you would do for me.
Maybe some stuff in my channel layouts and stuff. I could probably make that stuff look better because it's oversimplified. But Simple's been working pretty good so far.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need anything too big. I mean, I went all out on the logo at least.
Yeah. And Kurt did such a good job with that initial sketch. I was I saw that. I was like, this is a great idea. But we're like, there's no way we can make this look good. So give it to Blizz. And you made it look good for us, man. It looks great.
I talked with Care for quite a while, and I was like, could you not draw a better hand around the microphone? Because that thing was hard as hell to try to get the shape for.
Yeah. And also, speaking of art and all that stuff, thank you very much, Andre Kane, for letting me use your music in the intro. Very awesome. I love all of your work. And next week, MogTalk is kind of in the air. It is going to be another offline episode, but I'll be live in chat this time when we actually do that episode.
Why is this one being offline?
This one's offline because I'm working. The next one's offline. The next one is because I'm working again.
Oh.
But that time I'm working from home.
Makes sense.
I have to. I'm going to be on call, and I'm going to be taking calls. And if a call comes in and I don't respond to it, I get fired. So I gotta
hustle, baby.
Yeah,
gotta hustle.
Yeah, while I'm in the middle of the show. So what's your? Hold on, guys. Just talk for a little bit. Did you restart it? Okay. Yeah. No.
Mute yourself for a little while.
Yeah.
We start asking each other the same questions.
So let's extend this question he asked us 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Yeah.
I can ramble for days depending on the topic. So.
Yeah. Well, that show is either a secret show that I'm not going to tell anyone about until it's done, or it's going to be the show about, I believe I'm planning a show completely on other content besides just raiding on 3.4. So the other things they're introducing to the game that are not involving raiding that you guys might be interested in. Not the RP show yet.
I was about to say, I saw in your chat earlier the RP show. So
RP show's still in the works. I'm finding the people for it. It's hard. Maybe I just need to go to Balmung for a week or two. And just
well, either there or you can come back to Exodus, find ERP King. I mean, I
don't know. You said ERP and it's hard in the same sentence, and then
sorry, I didn't plan it, but it worked out wonderfully. All right. Well, thank you everybody again for watching. Let's do our awkward waves to end up the show here, and also stay tuned, guys, for something that I'm going to probably do after the show. So, all right. Bye, guys.
Like somebody.
See you, future people.
See ya. Bye. Hey, guys. Did you enjoy the show? Was it good? Was it bad? Did the offline experience kind of take away from the show entirely? If so, I'm very sorry. But hopefully it turned out to be kind of what you were looking for in the show. And whether you agree with some of the points that were said, if you disagree with it, I hope it at least developed a healthy conversation for you guys, because this is something that is extremely important to us. Rating in Final Fantasy, I think it's extremely important to the game to keep it going and to keep it a healthy MMO that we all can enjoy together. So, again, thank you all for watching the show, dealing with it being kind of offline today. I hope that it turned out great. And please give me all your feedback and let me know how you guys enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. Any kind of criticism would be appreciated. But yeah, stick around for this last commercial here. It helps support the stream. It helps keep us going. And it's all I'm really asking for. So thank you guys. And until next time, I'll see you. Bye.
Ugh, my server stinks. I'm moving to Gilgamesh.
OMG, you should totally move to Balmung. They have the hottest role players.
But, like, how am I going to get all my glamour over there? These transfer rates suck dookie.
Do not fear or worry your heads about such small matters. Just call Big Carl's Moving Company. We only hire the muscliest residents around.
Oh my!
Our rows spend their day lifting boxes, stones, and getting ready for your move.
But what about my guild life and dancing?
Our rows study the market board daily on each server to find the best investment in minions and dies. Once you arrive on your server, they will flood it all over the market and it will surely sell. All you need to do is call 1-800-ROGADEN. Talk to our muscly customer service specialist and pick a date.
Oh, a date, huh? A giggle, 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 giggle.
Big Carl's Moving Company. Call 1-800-ROGADEN.
Thanks, Big Carl. Now I can just focus totally on clearing raids because it was totally my server holding me back.